Yuan Xinghui's rod unleashed a wild gust of wind that stabbed like knives on the skin of the Unfettered Alliance's disciples. It almost stopped them right in their tracks. However, in the face of this attack, Long Chen didn't even look at him. His gaze was still on Tang Yaochen. He indifferently said, "You schemed against me." Just at that moment, Yuan Xinghui's rod smashed onto him, but he raised his hand and caught it just like that. What? All the people, both the disciples inside and the experts outside, were shocked. They had seen just how powerful Yuan Xinghui was. Even so, his full power attack was caught just like that, as if it was child's play. Hence, Yuan Xinghui was shocked and infuriated. He felt like his attack was like a clay ox that had fallen into the ocean, vanishing without a trace. He then tried to pull his rod back, but he found that it seemed to have become rooted in Long Chen's hand. He couldn't budge it. His arms flexed and his body shook as he tried to pull and push his rod. However, even after doing everything he could, it remained stuck. All the time, Long Chen's expression was indifferent, while Yuan Xinghui's face was turning purple. The experts outside were delighted to see this. The power that Long Chen displayed stirred them. Truly foolish. Luo Bing looked at Yuan Xinghui contemptuously. What was he doing? He was still trying to drag back a weapon that had been lost instead of letting go and running while he could. Holding the rod, Long Chen didn't seem to sense Yuan Xinghui's struggles. He then continued walking toward Tang Yaochen. Your actions have really displeased me. Furthermore, you used a formation to trap my berserk blood mammoth so that you could kill it. You were the ones who forced me to do this. I don't really like killing people, but you seem to really want to see me killing. Fine, I'll show you all Boss Long San's true abilities today. Long Chen suddenly moved. With a flick of his wrist, Yuan Xinghui's giant body was lifted into the air easily. That terrifying power shook everyone's hearts. Power that is not human, the head judge murmured to himself. Yuan Xinghui began to fall. As for his rod, it was now swung toward him with greater power than he had ever wielded it with. No! In the air, Yuan Xinghui had no means to avoid it. He could only watch as his own rod smashed into his waist. Boom! Yuan Xinghui's giant body exploded into a mist of blood. He was left without a corpse. Seeing this scene, the other experts were silent. Long Chen still had the rod in his hand, while in front of the rod was a blood mist that was slowly scattering. This scene was terrifying. Even more than that, Long Chen's expressionless gaze that didn't have the slightest ripple due to what had just happened was horrifying. I wanted to kill Tang Yaochen first, but since you were in such a rush, I decided sending you off first was all right. Long Chen looked at the blood mist in the air. He slowly put down the rod and then turned toward Tang Yaochen. Sorry for that. Someone cut in front of you. But I'm sure you won't mind. A fierce sensation of death enveloped Tang Yaochen when he met Long Chen's gaze. His whole body quivered. However, with Chu Kuang, Li Chengbei, Xiang Kejie, and dozens of other experts in front of him, he felt that he should be safe. He sneered, "Who do you think you are? You're just a trash ascender from a lower world, and your current accomplishments are all thanks to luck. Do you think that you're unbeatable? Do you think that you can kill me? Then come." Long Chen looked at him and gradually smiled disdainfully. I'm not a formation cultivator. But I have a brother who is, so I have some superficial knowledge of formations. That knowledge isn't really useful most of the time, but when it comes to killing you, Long Chen suddenly vanished. Just as everyone was stunned, he reappeared in front of Tang Yaochen like a phantom, grabbing the latter's throat. It should be enough. By the time he finished speaking, Tang Yaochen's life was in his hands. The experts around Tang Yaochen jumped because Long Chen had actually appeared in their midst in an instant. However, when they were about to attack him, he vanished once more, returning to his original location. But Tang Yaochen was still in his hand. He was truly like a phantom. By the time Chu Kuang and the others reacted, he was already gone. Chu Kuang and the others didn't understand, and neither did the disciples watching. All they had seen was a blur, and then Tang Yaochen was in Long Chen's hands. They had no idea what Long Chen had done. Tang Yaochen was held in the air like a dead dog, filled with horror. He wanted to struggle, but he couldn't move. I want to kill you, and here I am. I, Long Chen, have said trash and foolish words before, but I have never said any empty words. Looking at Tang Yaochen's terrified gaze, Long Chen indifferently explained, "When you first transported me back, I knew that you were starting a performance. Hence, when you started to activate the second transportation formation, I absorbed a bit of your formation's power. Although I only know a bit about formations, I'm capable of short-range teleportation with it." On the Martial Heaven continent, Long Chen had learned quite a bit about formations. But this branch of knowledge was too profound, and he was only capable of learning some fundamentals. He had done this because he was worried about fighting formation cultivators when Chen wasn't present. Furthermore, he found that the 9-star Hegemon body art possessed a strange ability to absorb a bit of energy no matter what kind of energy it was. Although he didn't really know how to use it, nor did he have time to study this topic, today, he had absorbed a bit of the transportation formation's power when Tang Yaochen had tried to send him out again. Before this, Long Chen didn't immediately attack because he was calculating the spatial location, nodes, and distance based on the methods that Chen had taught him. Fortunately, they were less than 100 meters apart. If they were too far, this bit of energy that Long Chen had absorbed wouldn't have been enough. Furthermore, his calculations wouldn't have allowed him to teleport accurately. However, for such a short range, he succeeded on his first try. Tang Yaochen was now in Long Chen's hands, and his body suddenly quivered. After that, everyone saw his pants become wet. This genius who had quite a bit of fame in the Formation Institute had actually wet himself in terror. He was actually so weak. Hence, countless people looked at him contemptuously. Tang Yaochen's throat suddenly thickened and he forced out a shout. However, before he could admit defeat, Long Chen's hand tightened its hold. With a crack, Tang Yaochen's head was ripped off of his body. Devil Ai Yang Fang died by having his head explode, Yuan Xinghui died from being smashed into blood mist, and the formation expert Tang Yaochen died with his head ripped off of his body. Just like that, Long Chen had killed 3 powerful experts without batting an eyelid. Moreover, those 3 had been famous existences amongst the Outer Academy's disciples, but they still died in one move, unable to even last a single exchange against Long Chen. Because of this, the Prime Glory Alliance's disciples finally became afraid. With his phantom-like movements, who could stop him? Suddenly, clapping sounds rang out, and it was from Chu Kuang. He was smiling. "Excellent, only like this is it interesting. Only such an opponent can make this competition more marvelous. Long Chen, do you know? I spent all this money and wasted all this effort just to force out all your power. Then I will kill you in front of millions of people. You, Long Chen, will become my stepping stone. I'll let you know that whether it is your background, your wealth, or your power, you cannot compare to me. This battle will be my glorious entry to the Inner Academy. And through this battle, I will announce to those people in the Inner Academy that I am the king of the Outer Academy. And when I go to the Inner Academy, I will also be the king of the Inner Academy." People were dumbfounded as to why Chu Kuang was still so confident after seeing Long Chen's power. Was Chu Kuang really so powerful? They then glanced toward Chu Huairen, only to find that he had a faint smile. It was as if he wasn't worried at all. "There's no need for you to do anything. Don't forget our agreement. His head is worth 100 million immortal crystals and a high-grade spirit item." The Seoul Institute's Li Chungbei spoke for the first time. He was extremely skinny and rather pale, almost looking hungover. His voice was sharp and thin. "Of course, my Chu family has plenty of money. The main thing is whether or not you have the ability to grasp that money," said Chu Kuang indifferently. "Long Chen, your head is mine." Li Chengbei suddenly formed hand seals, and a giant figure appeared in front of everyone. It was a divine bird. Its feathers emitted divine light, and its aura shook the space where the competition was held. Heavens, that's a contractual soul beast. Li Chengbei hasn't advanced to the divine flame realm yet. How can he have formed a contract with a soul beast? I heard that Li Chengbei's soul beast is thanks to the Chu family. But no one knows how it was done. A contractual soul beast will grow alongside him. Its aura seems to be in the divine flame realm. How can they fight that? The divine bird spread its wings and slashed one of them at Long Chen like a blade. Long Chen then dodged, causing the wing to leave a deep trench in the ground. That terrifying power made the others jump. Long Chen's head is mine. Just at that moment, the red-haired Xiang Kejie attacked with a fiery spear. Flames exploded out of his body, and countless runes lit up on his spear until it was red with heat. Even through the formation, people felt like they could sense the terrifying heat, as they could see space twisting around him. Also, over 10 other experts attacked at the same time. As for Chu Kuang, he simply stood there with his hands clasped behind his back, seemingly with no intention of interfering. "We're going to help Brother San." Zhong Ling and the other experts were about to rush forward. "It's nothing more than a group of useless fellows. There's no need for you to fight them," said Long Chen while dodging left and right, avoiding their attacks. Suddenly, he landed a punch on the divine bird's wing, and the explosion knocked both of them back. "With death at hand, you still dare to be so arrogant?" Xiang Kejie sneered and took advantage of this opening to stab his spear right at Long Chen's throat. However, Long Chen's figure flashed, and that spear pierced right past his neck. Despite its terrifying heat, it didn't harm Long Chen in the slightest. Slipping through the spear, Long Chen then landed a ruthless slap on Xiang Kejie's face, sending him flying. What shocked everyone was that blood actually dripped down from Xiang Kejie's head. Long Chen had clearly slapped him, so it would make sense for blood to come from Xiang Kejie's face but not the top of his head, right? However, when they spotted the red hair in Long Chen's hand, they realized that Long Chen had not only slapped him, but he had also torn off a chunk of his scalp. It was just that Long Chen was so fast that most people were unable to see his movements clearly. Only a few experts saw his actions. "I will return this to you. If you paste it back quickly, maybe it will latch back on," said Long Chen, tossing what was in his hand back to Xiang Kejie. Seeing this, Xiang Kejie roared furiously and smashed that piece of his scalp with his spear. His eyes were scarlet. After that, blood-colored runes appeared all over his body, and his blood chi ignited, causing his aura to soar to a new level. He was clearly infuriated. Holding nothing back, he wanted to kill Long Chen in one blow as vengeance for this humiliation. Earth-rending flame dragon spear. At this moment, a dragon-shaped mark appeared on Xiang Kejie's spear, and a raging heat ignited the air. "Playing with fire? Your boss San is the real ancestor in that department." Long Chen then sneered and slammed his palm forward, manifesting flame runes on his hand. Boom! The instant his palm met the spear lost its balance and ended up stabbing into an expert sneak attacking Long Chen from behind. That expert didn't have time to dodge or scream and instantly turned into a cloud of black smoke. This exchange gave people chills. The power of that spear was truly great. Surrounded by over 10 powerful experts, Long Chen looked to be in danger. But every time things seemed to turn sour for him, he would slip through their attacks. None of their crazed attacks was able to touch him. An incense stick's worth of time then passed, but no one noticed, not the ones fighting or the ones watching. At first, Long Chen's movements truly did seem to be the slightest bit rusty. But as he fought, his movements were growing more and more refined. It was as if he was gradually adapting to this battle. Suddenly, Long Chen grabbed Xiang Kejie's spear, and a sharp light appeared in his eyes. It was as if a blade had come out of its sheath. "The warm-up ends here. You can die." Long Chen suddenly pushed the spear back into Xiang Kejie. An earth-shattering power passed through his spear before it pierced his own body. Although Xiang Kejie was wrapped in flames and his spear was incredibly powerful, Long Chen just casually shoved the spear into Xiang Kejie's body. As a result, the flames around his body vanished in an instant, revealing his bare body. Everyone clearly saw the spear piercing through his chest. The next moment, Xiang Kejie looked down in disbelief. Just before this, he had been forcing Long Chen to repeatedly dodge, clearly having the advantage. But now he was defeated in a single move. Hence, fear swarmed over his face. "I admit dash." Just as he was about to admit defeat, the spear quivered, and he exploded before he could say the final word. Within the formation, as long as you said the words, "I admit defeat," you would be sent out. This rule had been modified over the years, because some people had taken advantage of it, tricking opponents into saying words that included this phrase, resulting in them being transported out and losing what should have been a sure win for them. In order to patch this flaw, you would only be sent out if you said, "I admit defeat," with nothing before or after. Xiang Kejie wished to admit defeat, but would Long Chen give him that chance? If Long Chen didn't kill them all, how could he face those disciples that had died? After killing Xiang Kejie, Long Chen didn't wait for the others to recover from their shock. He swept the spear out. The dragon-shaped mark then lit up, and a dragon cry could faintly be heard. Boom! The experts surrounding Long Chen were instantly devoured by flames. The Immortal Institute's Gu Fei had just recovered some energy and came charging back, but he stopped in his tracks when he saw Long Chen slay Xiang Kejie. However, before he could run, the flames swept him up. Gu Fei and the others screamed, trying to flee, but they could only see fire. On the other hand, the spectators saw some blurry figures moving toward the outer edge of the formation before they slowly faded. That sight shocked the experts outside. It seemed that this spear possessed even greater power in Long Chen's hands. Heavenly Flame, Scarlet Spirit Flame. Some flame cultivators shouted in shock as they recognized the flame Long Chen was using. Long Chen was actually capable of controlling a heavenly flame. Furthermore, it did not seem to be limited to the power of a heavenly flame seed. During this time, Hua Long had been constantly absorbing the power of the companion so its power now soared to a terrifying level. Li Chengbei was appalled. Other than him, everyone else attacking Long Chen was killed, so he immediately ordered his divine bird to flee. The divine bird then spread its wings and instantly appeared hundreds of meters away. Just as Li Chengbei thought that he had escaped this calamity, a flame spear shot out like a meteor, piercing through the divine bird and Li Chengbei who was on its back. The immense power of the spear blasted apart the soul beast and Li Chengbei. Directly after, the spear actually spun in the air and flew back into Long Chen's hand as if he was its owner. At this moment, Mu Qingyun and the others were shocked and delighted to see how powerful Long Chen was. He was practically unrivaled. He had killed over 10 of the Prime Glory Alliance's top experts in an instant. Seeing this, the other disciples of the Prime Glory Alliance were terrified by Long Chen's power. They had never seen such a terrifying enemy. Long Chen then pointed his spear at Chu Kuang. "By using a bunch of ants to test my power, are you looking down on me?" Ants? The disciples outside roared inside. If these people were ants, then what were they? It had to be known that Gu Fei, Li Chengbei, Xiang Kejie, Devil Ai Yangfang, Yuan Xinghui, and the others were all existences that the rest of the Outer Academy's disciples could only look up to. In fact, they felt like they could spend a lifetime without being qualified to stand alongside these dead experts. However, such amazing figures were called ants by Long Chen. How were the rest of them supposed to live now? Chu Kuang nodded at Long Chen. "Not bad. It seems that you've progressed once more after our last encounter. You must be very confident, right? But I always like beating people who are very confident." Chu Kuang grabbed his clothes and suddenly tore them off. Underneath his disciple robes, he revealed a skin-tight body armor. This body armor seemed to be made from golden silk and silver threads. Every single thread was covered in runes. Inscribing runes required a powerful medium, or it wouldn't be able to endure the power of the rune. For every thread to be able to have so many runes inscribed onto it signified that the material was incredibly precious. The full body armor was made of thousands and thousands of threads. Then the value of this body armor had to be enough to suffocate others. Although they didn't know what level of treasure it was, everyone knew it was definitely priceless. "This bastard really has too much money," cursed Luo Ning. Although the Luo family's wealth was not inferior to the Chu family's, even the family's top experts couldn't occupy so much of the family's resources alone. However, Chu Kuang was different. It was rumored that he was from the main bloodline, and more precisely, the bloodline of the family head. Hence, with his immense talent, he had been picked out to be the future family head and raised with the full might of the Chu family. That was why his financial power was unimaginable. Even though so many people had died, Chu Kuang still acted as if victory was in his grasp. He patted his armor. "Do you see? This is the 5-element spirit gathering armor. It automatically absorbs the energy of the 5 elements in the surroundings for me, giving me an unending stream of power. Furthermore, this armor was specifically made for the Chu family's main bloodline, so it also purifies and strengthens my bloodline. Let me tell you some bad news. With this 5-element spirit-gathering armor, even without advancing to the Divine Flame realm, I can already use the power of the Divine Flame realm. I can easily unleash my divine abilities. Long Chen shook his head. Then let me tell you some bad news. You won't get to see tomorrow's sun because you've managed to infuriate me. Today, I will probably have to unleash my full power. Let me tell you, whenever I use my full power, even I get afraid. Haha. Chu Kong laughed disdainfully. What a huge joke. You're still bragging now? If you really had that ability, then back in the lava cave, when you, Luo Bing and Luo Ning were surrounding me, wouldn't you have unleashed your power to kill me? Why would you give up your only chance to kill me? Hearing this, everyone was startled. If all 3 of them had really surrounded Chu Kuang and he had still escaped unscathed, then Long Chen alone couldn't possibly beat him, right? Long Chen smiled. You must be very curious about that. Why did I only dodge when you activated your ancestral bloodline last time? Fine, I'll tell this secret to everyone. It's because of this. Long Chen patted his own chest. When he looked down at his robes, a rare warmth appeared on his face. Last time, I didn't fight you directly because I was worried about damaging my robes. These clothes possess far too much meaning to me. Haha, this has to be the most shameless, most laughable excuse I've ever heard, scoffed Chu Kuang. That's fine. You can laugh if you want. Many people have asked me why I always wear these worn-down clothes anyway, said Long Chen. Everyone then looked at him. His clothes were truly unbearably worn out with many patches. The thread work that went into those patches was clearly coarse. It was done by someone who didn't have skill in needlework, and it was very likely Long Chen himself. Mu Qingyun and the others had asked Long Chen about his black robes many times, but he had never answered them. Now that he mentioned it, Mu Qingyun and the others' ears perked up. Even the people outside, including the head judge, were curious. It had to be known that Long Chen had always been destitute. However, he had been willing to give up his position as an instructor just because of these black robes. Long Chen rubbed his black robes, saying, "These clothes were made by my loved ones just before the last battle of my world. Every thread contains their feelings. Every inch contains endless hope. These clothes are irreplaceable to me. Wearing them, I don't feel alone or afraid. Before I find my loved ones again, I will keep wearing these clothes. Every thread is priceless." Long Chen's voice was heavy, and his voice contained both grief and longing. Everyone could clearly feel his pain. I didn't expect this fellow to have such a sentimental side. Luo Ning was surprised. She hadn't expected Long Chen to have such an infatuation. He was actually so attached to one set of clothes. Hence, quite a few women watching were affected by his emotions. With his pride, he would definitely disdain telling such a lie, so they were willing to believe every word. Long Chen continued, "Last time, my mortal qi had yet to fully regress, and with no immortal spiritual qi, I could not form a protective layer around my clothes. Fighting with you might have damaged them. In my eyes, your life isn't worth crap, so it wasn't worth the risk. Now do you understand? What bullshit. Even if you want to make up stories, you should know your limit. My life isn't worth some clothes? Do you take me for a fool?" sneered Chu Kuang. He was clearly angered by these insulting words. Long Chen looked at him indifferently. "Do you think that you're not a fool? If you weren't a fool, you wouldn't have become enemies with me. If you weren't a fool, you wouldn't be wasting time talking with me. You think that you're stalling for time for the people inside to light the last 2 lamps and take the flag for victory. If you weren't a fool, you would have seen that Mu Qingyun's aura is slowly recovering. She has reached 70%. Is her recovery enough to affect the entire battlefield now?" Chu Kuang was shocked. Only now did he notice that Mu Qingyun was hiding at the rear, rapidly recovering. The half-dead Li Kai was blocking his line of sight, drawing their attention. Hence, no one had noticed that Mu Qingyun was recovering. Not one of the countless eyes watching the battlefield had noted Mu Qingyun's tiny movements. They had all assumed that with her injuries, she could no longer rejoin the battle. Hence, everyone's attention had been on Long Chen. It was only through Long Chen's reminder that they realized that while Chu Kuang was scheming, Long Chen was also scheming. Kill them! Chu Kuang's expression finally changed and he shouted. As a result, the remaining disciples immediately charged out. As long as they weren't facing Long Chen, they didn't feel any fear. Qingyun, kill them all and get to the altar. Leave Chu Kuang to me. I entrust the flag to you, said Long Chen. Brother San, don't worry. Mu Qingyun had recovered 70% of her power with the help of Long Chen's medicinal pill, so she was full of confidence. As a sword cultivator, her weak physical body was a fatal weakness, but it had one benefit. Her recovery was also fast. Mu Qingyun then led the Unfettered Alliance's disciples forward. In the very first clash, over 10 of their enemies' weapons were broken. Mu Qingyun's sword light was even sharper than before. With Mu Qingyun at the front, the Unfettered Alliance's disciples blasted through their midst. After Gu Fei, Xiang Kejie, Tang Yaochen, Li Chengbei, Yang Fong, and the others were killed by Long Chen, none of the others could compare to them. Although Mu Qingyun was only at 70% of her full power, no one from the Prime Glory Alliance could stop her. Upon seeing this, Chu Kuang's expression changed. He had schemed and schemed, but he had never thought that Mu Qingyun's recovery would be so fast. Now, the Prime Glory Alliance was in danger. He suddenly stamped on the ground, choosing to kill Mu Qingyun first. Even if he didn't kill her, giving her a heavy injury would be enough. However, just as he moved, a hand came from a bizarre angle and struck him in the face. Long Chen seemed to have expected Chu Kuang's way of thought. Just as Chu Kuang's gaze changed, Long Chen moved, arriving in front of him. He perfectly predicted Chu Kuang's movements. Some of the senior experts outside were shocked. Long Chen not only saw through Chu Kuang's intentions, but he also accurately judged Chu Kuang's path and launched his attack before Chu Kuang even moved. Now it was as if Chu Kuang had simply jumped into Long Chen's moving palm. Such a thing was only possible for a powerful expert toying with someone far weaker. It required sharp observation skills, experience, and accurate calculations, as well as many other factors. But Long Chen had done it to Chu Kuang. As a result, Chu Kuang was sent flying before he even understood what happened. While being wrapped in multiple lights, Chu Kuang smashed into a giant mountain many miles away. He was like a cannonball, smashing straight through the mountain. The top part of the mountain then collapsed, sending boulders flying. Damn, what kind of power is this? The spectators were stunned. A slap in the face could send someone multiple miles away? Was that something a mortal Transcendence disciple was capable of? If it weren't for Chu Kuang's 5-element spirit-gathering armor, that one slap might have killed him. This power is truly stunning, murmured Heaven Master Yin Yang. The 5-colored light around Chu Kuang was the automatic protection of the 5-element spirit-gathering armor. Hence, other than a very clear handprint swelling on his face, Chu Kuang wasn't injured. However, the slap made him dizzy, and he was unable to differentiate north from south, east from west. Just as he was regaining his orientation, a flame spear pierced through the air at him. The spear flew through the air silently. It was incredibly fast, so fast that Chu Kuang didn't even sense it before he was hit by it. Boom! Chu Kuang was sent flying once more, bouncing several more miles and leaving large holes in the ground. And all of a sudden, a figure appeared and caught the spear. That was Long Chen. He had caught up and now chased after Chu Kuang. He was clearly intent on forcing Chu Kuang away from the altar. He wanted to fight away from it. Chu Kuang finally stabilized himself, but not before he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Although he had the 5-element spirit-gathering armor protecting him, his insides were still shaken. At the same time as people were amazed by Long Chen's attacks, they were also amazed by the 5-element spirit-gathering armor. Its defensive powers were truly great. Those 2 attacks of Long Chen's were inconceivably powerful. But Chu Kuang's 5-element spirit-gathering armor was still able to block both of them. His aura didn't change. Although he coughed up blood, that little injury was nothing to him. At this moment, Long Chen reached Chu Kuang again and stabbed his spear at him once more. All of a sudden, a blood-colored saber appeared in Chu Kuang's hand, and he swung it at Long Chen's spear. But just at this moment, Long Chen released his spear, which instantly vanished when it was struck by an overwhelming power. The feeling of having all his power be spent on smacking away a spear with no power in it threw Chu Kuang off. It was like he had struck air, and his body staggered from his own power. After that, Long Chen spun through the air and slapped him once more, this time with even greater power. People even spotted some faint ripples in the air when Long Chen's hand struck Chu Kuang's face. They then saw Chu Kuang's face deform, and he shot out like a cannonball again, flying even further this time. After 3 blows, he had been forced back dozens of miles. It was both shocking and funny. Big sister, what is Long Chen doing? He could clearly cause Chu Kuang real injuries. Why is he only slapping him? Asked Luo Ning. Although she did feel like Long Chen's slaps were very satisfying, such a thing wouldn't be able to cripple Chu Kuang. Furthermore, it seemed he had done this just to get Chu Kuang away from the altar. In her view, this was incomprehensible. Luo Bing shook her head. I can't tell either. Perhaps he hates Chu Kuang so much that he wants to humiliate him? But then is he not worried about Mu Qingyun and the others? Luo Ning couldn't help looking toward the altar. Although Mu Qingyun was powerful, she didn't have much physical power as a sword cultivator, so she couldn't fight for long. Furthermore, breaking the barrier would need even more energy. If the other side simply stalled and exhausted her, Long Chen and the others would still lose. Perhaps Long Chen believes in Mu Qingyun. Well, we shouldn't randomly guess. We can't tell what Long Chen's thinking. Since it's not like we can help him anyway, just choose to trust him, said Luo Bing. Long Chen was an incomprehensible existence. They might as well simply watch. As Long Chen forced Chu Kuang away from the altar, Mu Qingyun and the other disciples of the Unfettered Alliance were trampling over the Prime Glory Alliance's disciples. The latter were hand-picked experts of the Chu family. In truth, their power was more than a single level higher than the Unfettered Alliance's disciples. However, in the face of these fearless, reckless madmen, they were terrified. How was this a competition? This was an undying vengeance, and they were like ghouls. Seeing the people around them being cut down one by one, the Prime Glory Alliance's disciples were too afraid to fight properly. One of them had his arm cut off and immediately shouted, "I admit defeat." He then transformed into a white light and was transported out. He was safe but had lost his right to continue participating in the competition. Hold on. As long as we can endure, we'll win. Mu Qingyun is almost out of power, shouted one of the minor leaders of the Prime Glory Alliance. He was actually stronger than most of them, but he didn't dare to face Mu Qingyun directly. Hence, he stayed away from her, waiting for her to run out of energy. However, that meant that no one could stop Mu Qingyun. With every slash of her sword, a disciple was killed. Those disciples didn't even have a chance to admit defeat. I admit defeat. I admit defeat. The terrified disciples of the Prime Glory Alliance simply didn't have the morale to keep fighting. When Mu Qingyun approached, they fled. They would rather not get any reward and keep their life. Bastards, there's no need to admit defeat. Retreat back into the barrier, shouted the leader. They couldn't continue fighting like this. If they did, before Mu Qingyun was exhausted, all of them would be gone. Following his new orders, the remaining disciples of the Prime Glory Alliance retreated back into the barrier and finally had a chance to breathe. Mu Qingyun and the others would need to break the barrier to enter. Everyone, focus on lighting the lamps. We'll grab the flag before they can break the barrier, shouted the leader. He saw that everyone was terrified and no longer had the heart to keep fighting. If he ordered them to go out to disturb Mu Qingyun and the others, it was unlikely that they would listen. In truth, ignoring the others, even he himself didn't dare to do so. Hence, all of them gathered at the core of the altar and poured in their energy. The final 2 lamps had red strips at the bottom to show how much energy they had. Once it was maxed out, the flag would pop out of the altar, and whichever side grabbed it first would win. With the Prime Glory Alliance's disciples hunkered down inside the barrier, Mu Qingyun assaulted the barrier. But it was extremely tough, so she was unable to break it in an instant. Watching as the progress bars on the lamps quickly advanced, it seemed that they would be done in an incense stick's worth of time. Seeing this, Mu Qingyun grew anxious. The flag was inside the barrier. If they didn't break the barrier, they would have no chance of obtaining it and would still lose. "Everyone, attack!" shouted Mu Qingyun. In truth, there was no need for her order. Everyone was already attacking the barrier with all their might. As Mu Qingyun attacked the barrier, she also looked at Long Chen's side, feeling worried about him. Boom! Just at this moment, an explosion shook the battlefield, and a vast aura soared into the sky. This immense power changed the color of the wind and clouds. Chu Kuang has activated his bloodline divine ability. Luo Bing watched the battle unfold gravely. Chu Kuang's blood qi was erupting, and everything within 300 meters of him was inundated with his bloodline runes. Last time, he had activated his bloodline power in the lava cave. But this time, its aura was 10 times greater. Luo Bing guessed that it was partially due to Chu Kuang holding back last time, while the other reason was due to the 5-element spirit gathering armor, which was a special bloodline spirit item. It was connected to his bloodline power, and the resonance between them caused such a phenomenon. The current Chu Kuang was so powerful that even divine flame disciples felt suffocated. This aura was coming through the formation, but it was still so terrifying. "Long Chen, didn't you want to see my true power? Then I'll show it to you today." Chu Kuang's voice was dripping with bloody killing intent. Clearly, he was completely enraged by Long Chen's previous attacks. "Try and receive my saber." Chu Kuang roared, his hair flying back. At this moment, his saber and the 5-element spirit gathering armor lit up with runes. A flood of light then poured into his saber, and a giant saber image tore toward Long Chen. Boom! Wherever the saber image went, the ground was torn apart. The location that Long Chen had been was now a giant ditch where dust and rubble billowed in every direction. The experts watching were dumbfounded by this attack. Luo Bing covered her mouth, filled with disbelief. The Luo and Chu families were old enemies, so she was very familiar with the Chu family's techniques. However, she had not expected Chu Kuang to be so powerful. Originally, with her bloodline activated, she had thought that she could match Chu Kuang. At the very least, she should have the ability to fight him without being instantly crushed. However, this attack was absolutely terrifying. Let alone her, even her big sister Luo Bing couldn't receive such a blow. Where is Long Chen? Within the billowing dust, no one could see Long Chen's figure. Was he killed? He couldn't even dodge? Such a terrifying move probably contains a locking power. It's not so easy to dodge. They were unable to spot Long Chen even after a while of searching, so quite a few people began to sigh. On the other hand, Chu Huairen and the other magistrates smiled disdainfully. It was as if everything was within their expectations. However, those smiles quickly vanished. When the dust settled, they saw a figure slowly appear. What? When their line of sight cleared, they finally saw a black figure with a spear on his shoulder. His clothes and hair slowly fluttered in a light breeze. Most shocking of all was the 300-meter ring of light behind Long Chen. They could see the energy of heaven and earth converging into that ring. It was a 7-colored divine ring, but the colors were vague and moving within the ring. Some colors would float up for a while and then fade back in. At this moment, the space around Long Chen was twisting and fluctuating. What kind of cultivation technique is that? It's the 7 Supreme Yang technique. It was the consummate technique of the 7 Supreme sect back in the ancient era. It's an extremely powerful cultivation technique, but its inheritance was severed countless years ago. Even our academy only has a fraction of the full technique. Furthermore, the most important part of how to transfer and transform the metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, and lightning energies has been lost. No one can train in it. How can Long Chen possess such a technique? Even Heaven Master Yun Yang was shocked. He was familiar with the God Institute's cultivation techniques and skills. Since he had skimmed through all the texts in every area, he recognized this technique. Did Long Chen use his own intelligence and imagination to replace the missing portion? Wondered one of the God Institute's Earth-ranked instructors. He had seen this technique in a damaged scroll decades ago. He had felt it to be incredibly profound, but the important part was missing, so it couldn't be cultivated. Moreover, he had actually spent a few years researching and testing it but had failed to fix the missing part. Ignoring the time wasted, he had almost become bedeviled. At that last moment, he was so frightened that he directly gave up on this technique. Now seeing Long Chen summon the seven-color divine ring, he thought of his own efforts. Heaven Master Yun Yang shook his head. It's impossible. That seven supreme yang technique is too profound, and it's from the ancient era. The cultivation style is different from the current era. Only a grandmaster who cultivates an ancient cultivation technique could possibly repair such a technique. With Long Chen's age, no matter how intelligent he is, it's impossible. He might already possess the complete seven supreme yang technique before this. Although its complete form has been lost in the immortal world, maybe a complete copy still exists in the myriad worlds of the lower plane. Heaven Master Yun Yang tried to make an educated guess based on his experience, and it made others nod. It sounded plausible. After all, it was unknown just how many brilliant sages had tried to repair the seven supreme yang technique in the academy, but they all failed. If Long Chen was capable of it, that would simply be a fantasy story. Just as everyone was guessing, the dust around Long Chen settled. The 300-meter area around him was still untouched, so he was standing on a circular island in the middle of a giant ditch. Chu Kuang's attack had ravaged the land, and only the area beneath Long Chen's feet remained unscathed. It was a shocking sight. When the dust settled, the cold wind also slowly faded. As a result, Long Chen's black robes and hair stopped fluttering, and the world returned to calm. Chu Kuang looked at Long Chen with overflowing killing intent. Long Chen looked at Chu Kuang as well. He slowly smiled. This is your so-called power? You're still thinking of holding back now? I cannot imagine just how foolish you are. It seems that your usual opponents are all too weak, causing you to get into a habit of acting like a pig to eat the tiger. Fine, since you want to be a pig, I'll be a butcher today. As Long Chen made his move, his divine ring shuddered. The world suddenly dimmed, as if all its energy was instantly sucked away. At this moment, the island around Long Chen crumbled, and he vanished, charging at Chu Kuang like a bolt of lightning. Wild Lightning's Soul Battle Spear. A layer of lightning enveloped Long Chen's spear as it pierced toward Chu Kuang. Within the multicolored divine ring behind Long Chen, his true divine ring revolved. Of the 6 colors, half went clockwise and half went counterclockwise. The power within heaven and earth was absorbed into Long Chen's body. This was Long Chen's first time using the divine ring at full power in the immortal world, and he found that it was even easier to use it here than in the mortal world. His perception then spread as his divine ring revolved. He even saw beyond the formation and everyone in the plaza. Could it be that the 9-star Hegemon body art is actually a cultivation technique from the immortal world? Only in the immortal world can it unleash its greatest power? A thought flashed through Long Chen's mind, but his spear was already stabbing toward Chu Kuang. Idiot, do you think you're worth me using my full power? Chu Kuang was shocked by the power of Long Chen's divine ring, but he was also infuriated by his words. Hence, his saber's light multiplied, and he slashed it at Long Chen. Boom! The two weapons smashed into each other and unleashed an explosion of divine light. Countless runes flew through the air. At the same time, the ground beneath their feet crumbled, and the cracks spread for miles. Their weapons continued to clash, and they both glared at each other. As their power rose, the cracks continued to spread. Heavens, are they really human? What level of power is that? Are they really the same as us? Are they in the mortal transcendence realm? Why is it that I feel like I wouldn't even be able to get close before being crushed? Did Long Chen know that this would happen? Is that why he pushed Chu Kuang away from the altar? People grew more and more shocked. These two were both monsters. How could they be so powerful? They're incredibly powerful. But how is Long Chen so strong? Exclaimed Luo Ning. Chu Kuang was assisted by his armor and weapon, but Long Chen had no such thing. Even his weapon was something he had just acquired from someone else. He was relying entirely on his own power to fight, which was the most shocking thing. The ground beneath their feet continued to rumble. Eventually, it began to sink, and a giant hole quickly appeared around them. Long Chen, I admit that you truly have some power. But you can't beat me. My power isn't something that you can imagine, said Chu Kuang. The power of his saber continued to slowly rise. However, no matter how much it rose, he was unable to shake Long Chen. Long Chen stared at him solemnly. The first time I saw you, I particularly disliked you and wanted to slap you. At first, I thought it was because you were someone powerless acting arrogant or someone so ugly but still prancing around. But later on, I felt that this was the wrong reason. Then I suspected that it was because of the relationship between the Chu family and the Luo family. However, that also seemed off. Today, while fighting you, I find that I am detesting you more and more. I have a feeling that the answer will soon be revealed. You'll pay a painful price for your ignorance. Chu Kuang sneered. His saber's runes suddenly blazed with light, and his power instantly rose close to 30%. As a result, Long Chen's spear was pushed back, and the saber approached Long Chen's neck. Even so, Long Chen didn't reveal any hint of astonishment in his expression. Just as his spear was being pushed back, his left hand became covered in white dragon scales and slapped Chu Kuang's in his sneering face. Boom. Because Chu Kuang hadn't expected Long Chen to suddenly launch an attack with his left hand, his body was smashed through the earth until he was embedded into a mountain. As a result, this large mountain shuddered, became covered in cracks, and then collapsed. The spectators were all dumbfounded. Just what kind of monster was Long Chen? According to reason, while fighting Chu Kuang who was using his full power, he shouldn't have the power to attack with his other hand. But he had still done so. The only way this was possible was if he wasn't using his full power to stop Chu Kuang's saber. Even all that wasn't his full power? Then Long Chen definitely wasn't human. He was a demon. Originally, many people were angered by Chu Kuang's flagrant cheating and the Chu family's magistrate's words. They also felt some sympathy for the weaker side, so they cheered for Long Chen to win. But upon seeing this power, they were dumbfounded. Just who exactly was the weaker side? Just who was acting like a pig to eat the tiger? Just who were they supposed to sympathize with? This aura, it seems to be the dragon race's energy. As expected, it's not the power of a human. The head judge's eyes flickered with light as he looked at Long Chen. He was one of the very few people to spot the dragon scales that had appeared on Long Chen's palm. He had previously judged that Long Chen's power was not the power of a human. However, he hadn't been able to tell just what kind of power it was. But this slap revealed Long Chen's dragon scales and aura, allowing the head judge to guess. Right now, the disciples stared at the giant ditch as well as the broken mountain. They were deathly silent. Even the other magistrates' expressions changed, but Chu Huairen remained calm. He confidently said, "It's fine. The young master has plenty of trump cards. He's still evaluating Long Chen to see just how many of them he should use. After all, it is the competition for the family head position that is truly important. Exposing too much here is meaningless. In the High Firmament Academy, no one in the Outer Academy is a match for him." Chu Huairen then looked at the head judge, and he saw that the head judge was also looking at him. Both of them smiled, but each person's smile contained different implications. Boom! The collapsed mountain exploded. And from within the swirling dust and flying rubble, Chu Kuang walked out. When all of them saw Chu Kuang, they couldn't help being shocked. After receiving such a powerful attack, someone else would have died 100 times. But Chu Kuang was still fine. "Long Chen, you've really pissed me off. Have a taste of my fury." Chu Kuang's hair was a bit messy from walking out of the rubble, but his gaze contained a frightening light, as well as endless killing intent. He suddenly raised his head and roared. After that, four balls of light appeared behind his back. When that light appeared, Luo Bing and Luo Ning both turned pale. They shot out of their seats. Impossible! 4 Divine Beast Golden Body. This time, even the head judge was moved. He felt disbelief when he saw those 4 balls of light behind Chu Kuang. As the 4 balls of light appeared, golden runes lit up around Chu Kuang's body. It was as if his body was made of gold, emitting dazzling golden light. Moreover, when he summoned the 4 Divine Beast Golden Body, his power erupted like a volcano. His aura shook the very heavens. As a result, the experts throughout the plaza were all stupefied. How could Chu Kuang have hidden his true powers so deeply? It's over. Wasn't the 4 Divine Beast Golden Body a technique that only the Chu family's 4 peak experts could barely activate? Now that Chu Kuang has activated it, there's no hope for Long Chen. Luo Ning felt despair. The 4 Divine Beast Golden Body was something that caused an endless headache for the Luo family in their battles against the Chu family. After the Chu family was defeated the first time, they had come back with such a consummate technique. With the support of their ancestral blood, they ignited their blood qi, allowing their power to soar to an unimaginable level. This was the technique that allowed the Chu family to create a solid foundation for themselves again. However, it had harsh requirements. Normally, only a 4-peak expert could barely satisfy those requirements and cultivate this technique. But now Chu Kuang had done it in the mortal transcendence realm. Seeing the golden light around Chu Kuang's body and his raging blood qi that caused the air to shudder, Luo Bing and Luo Ning felt like they had fallen into a nightmare. Chu Huairen smiled when he saw this technique. Clearly, he was the one clearest on Chu Kuang's true power. It was due to this that he was so confident. Moreover, seeing the head judge's shocked expression, he was particularly satisfied. Just as everyone's gaze was focused on Chu Kuang, there was an elder outside of the plaza slowly sweeping the leaves on the ground with a broom. The elder shook his head and sighed, "Destiny draws enemies together." Without even looking at the plaza, he continued sweeping, as if unconcerned with anything happening in the outside world. Long Chen was also astonished by those lights. This aura, it seems a bit similar to the 9-star hegemon body art, but it's extremely loathsome. This feeling, it seems as if a flicker of different killing intent shone in Long Chen's eyes. He seemed to have found the reason why he instinctively loathed Chu Kuang. Long Chen. Chu Kuang howled, and the golden light on his body erupted. At the same time, the ground beneath him split apart, and the rubble behind him exploded. Even before attacking, his aura can break mountains. Just what level has Chu Kuang's power reached? The current Chu Kuang was surrounded by raging astral winds. It was as if his power could devour the heavens. Golden runes flowed like the tides around him, forming a golden sea. Everything within this golden sea was affected. Even the earth began to collapse and sink. However, this golden domain stopped a few dozen miles from the altar, which showed that its range was limited. Mu Qingyun stared in shock. She had never dreamed that Chu Kuang's power would surpass everyone's expectations by so much. Hence, her heart sank, feeling worried for Long Chen. "Don't worry. Leave things here to me. You just need to get the flag." Just as she was full of worry and searching for Long Chen's figure within the golden sea, Long Chen's voice rang out in her mind. Mu Qingyun was startled. Long Chen was actually able to give her a spiritual transmission from so far away? Furthermore, he was still capable of keeping an eye on their side? Since this was the case, her confidence was boosted, and she felt like some kind of energy was poured into her. After that, she crazily attacked the barrier. Since Long Chen had left the flag to her, then even if she had to die, she would accomplish this mission. Long Chen, face your death. Chu Kuang suddenly stamped on the ground, causing a large hole to collapse. He shot toward Long Chen. Due to how fast he was, he left behind a mass of afterimages behind him. By the time people reacted, he was already in front of Long Chen. In the face of this furious assault, Long Chen's body flickered. He narrowly dodged it, allowing the saber to strike the land and create another huge ditch. Just at that moment, he slapped Chu Kuang in the face again. However, golden light exploded, and Long Chen was blown back at the same time as Chu Kuang. After that, the two of them stabilized 300 meters from each other. Long Chen shook out his hand. "Your skin really is thick. I actually can't beat it." Just now, Although his slap had landed, his palm became numb. It felt like needles were stabbing it. Clearly, this four-divine beast golden body didn't just strengthen Chu Kuang's physical body, but it also increased the power of his armor. Chu Kuang was enraged. Although he wasn't injured, he had been slapped in the face once again. This humiliation felt more unbearable than being killed for him. Die! Out of rage, Chu Kuang charged at Long Chen once more, and a blood-colored rune appeared in his eyes. As this happened, Long Chen's body tightened. He was actually locked down by some mysterious energy. Chu Kuang was aware of Long Chen's extensive combat experience after having suffered at the latter's hands multiple times. If he didn't use this bloodline-locking art of his, he wouldn't be able to strike Long Chen. However, using this technique increased the burning rate of his bloodline power. "Try and dodge this," roared Chu Kuang, his saber slashing through the air with a thunderous sound. Boom. Being locked down, Long Chen couldn't dodge, so he smashed his spear toward Chu Kuang. As a result, when his spear met the saber, a giant explosion shook the land. Long Chen's spear exploded. As for Long Chen, he shot back and smashed into a steep cliff, creating a new human-shaped hole in it. Cracks then spread around this hole, covering the entire stone mountain. Long Chen, Luo Bing and Luo Ning covered their mouths, fraught with worry. Long Chen's weapon was no divine spear, so it couldn't block Chu Kuang's saber. Everyone fell deathly silent, looking at Long Chen who wasn't moving. It couldn't be that he died? Such a terrifying attack. If it was someone else, they would have died an unknown number of times. However, all of a sudden Long Chen began to move, and the cracks in the cliff spread. Just as Long Chen jumped out, the entire mountain collapsed. He didn't die. Seeing him walking out of the cliff, Luo Bing and Luo Ning cheered. How dangerous! Long Chen brushed the rubble off of him and then examined his clothes. Not seeing any new damage, he sighed with relief. Seeing Long Chen care so much for those clothes, everyone knew that he wasn't injured. They found it funny instead. On the other hand, Chu Huairen's expression gradually turned ugly. Just now, Chu Kuang hadn't held back with that attack. And the result of it was that Long Chen's weapon was destroyed, but he himself was fine. Chu Kuang's attack hadn't even broken Long Chen's protective chi. Otherwise, his clothes would have been blown apart. Because of this, Chu Huairen's confidence began to fade, and a bad feeling rose from the bottom of his heart. This feeling kept growing stronger and stronger. Long Chen patted the dust off of his clothes and then unhurriedly looked at Chu Kuang. "It seems that for the sake of my clothes, I can also no longer remain low-key. I should warn you, I'm going to start using my real power now. You might lose in just a few moves, so if you have any trump cards, you should use them now. Otherwise, don't cry to the Yama King when you get slaughtered in a bit and say that I didn't give you a chance." An uproar exploded amongst the spectators. What kind of situation was this? Long Chen was also holding back? Even at this point, he wasn't using his full power? Were they really humans? What nonsense. You're still saying big words with death at hand. I will kill you right now in front of everyone. Chu Kuang shot after Long Chen once more, not using any flashy moves. He simply locked Long Chen down with his bloodline power. After that his saber fell, causing ripples to appear in the air. Luo Bing and Luo Ning's hearts clenched. Long Chen didn't even have a weapon, so how could he block this? They hoped for Long Chen to be able to suddenly take out a divine weapon. Perhaps then he would have a chance. But they had never seen Long Chen use some amazing weapon. Furthermore, he was currently rolling up his sleeves. What is he doing? After he had rolled up his sleeves, he bent his body slightly like a leopard preparing to pounce. His gaze instantly became as sharp as a sword. He then formed hand seals and shouted, "Heaven and earth, land and sky, the blue dome of the firmament, summon the stars." Multiple starry rivers suddenly appeared within Long Chen's divine ring, forming a star diagram. When that star diagram appeared, a pillar of light erupted into the sky with Long Chen at the center. After that, a power from above the starry sky manifested. This pillar of light pierced through the formation around the battlefield. Everyone clearly saw it pierce high above the 9 heavens. Following that, a terrifying power descended from above the heavens, going straight toward Long Chen. The stars in his star diagram were originally dim, but when this power descended, those stars instantly blazed with light. The light pillar then exploded, transforming into runes. It was like a star had exploded, and it lit up the entire world like millions of fireflies. It was both illusory and real. It's the forbidden technique, Starry River of the Sky art. Several experts cried out, recognizing this technique. Perhaps the youngsters didn't know of it, but amongst the senior generation, almost everyone recognized it. That was because the Starry River of the Sky art had once lured countless heavenly geniuses into cultivating it, and it resulted in countless deaths. After that sensation, the Academy classified it as a forbidden art. Without the express approval of someone at the level of an institute head, it was forbidden for anyone to read it. This technique was too bizarre and domineering. It was famed for being ominous, which was why the senior experts recognized it. It was precisely because they recognized it that they were so shocked. Just the 7 Supreme Yang technique that Long Chen had previously revealed was already shocking enough. Now that he had also taken out the Starry River of the Sky art, merging the manifestations of 2 different cultivation techniques into one, everyone was shocked. He forcibly merges 2 completely different cultivation techniques into one? How is that possible? The experts watching felt like they had gone mad. This made no sense. Such a thing completely broke the iron laws of cultivation. At this moment, the divine ring behind Long Chen revolved and the star twinkled. As the astral energy rushed through his body, he could sense the countless stars up above the heavens, as if they were watching him. Even though he no longer dared to touch their power after that incident, he still felt the ephemeral connection to them. It was a strange feeling. That mysterious expert had said that if he wanted to use their power, he would have to condense the 7th star first. Otherwise, it would be no different from suicide. Last time, he had failed to gather that astral energy and almost died. But that failure still gave him the experience. He could now sense the position of every star in the sky, and he felt as if every star in his body corresponded to one of those stars. It was a profound feeling. This was his first time using his astral energy in the immortal world. Hence, he was immersed in the feeling, almost forgetting that he was in the middle of a battle. Just at that moment, Chu Kuang's saber fell toward him. And without even thinking about it, Long Chen punched at it with a scale-covered fist. Boom! As a result, a powerful explosion shook the battlefield, and a wave of runes exploded in every direction. It was as if the sun had exploded from his punch. Chu Kuang hacked up blood and tumbled away. What? Chu Huairen leaped out of his seat, stunned. Did he just receive an attack from a spirit item with his bare hand? Everyone was shocked. With just a body of flesh and blood, Long Chen could face spirit items. Furthermore, it was a spirit item with a bloodline inheritance. Was he a devil beast in human form? Chu Kuang smashed through multiple mountains, causing them to collapse. It was a dizzying sight. In the immortal world, using the 9-star Hegemon body art is much easier. Only in the immortal world can it unleash its greatest potential. Long Chen sensed the astral energy surging through his body, and that power made him feel like the ruler of the world, like an unrivaled sovereign. He had never experienced this feeling. It was as if all others should submit to him. With just 3 steps, Long Chen appeared in front of Chu Kuang again, and he unleashed a stamp of his foot. So fast! Startled cries rang out. Long Chen was practically teleporting. He was so fast that they couldn't even track him. Chu Kuang had barely climbed out of the dirt when Long Chen's foot landed. As a result, another huge explosion caused a giant hole to appear in the ground. This tough battlefield was like paste in front of Long Chen. With a single attack, the terrain was changed. Dust and sand flew about. Chu Kuang managed to block Long Chen's foot with his saber. But as Long Chen pressed down, Chu Kuang sank deeper and deeper. He couldn't knock Long Chen away. It felt like an entire world was crashing down upon him, and no matter what he did, he couldn't shake Long Chen off. He felt like was going to be crushed. Bastard, die! Chu Kuang suddenly roared and the 4 balls of light behind him revolved. the power of the God path erupted. Boom! The 4 balls of light behind Chu Kuang blazed with golden light. At this moment, the earth shuddered. Even the people outside the formation felt like the earth was shaking. Golden light then exploded around Chu Kuang, gushing out in every direction. A terrifying god energy radiated from him, and it created forceful astral winds that made the hole they were in even larger. God energy! Has Chu Kuang left his Tao doctrine in the lower plane and begun gathering faith energy? He hasn't ignited his divine flame yet. How can he gather faith energy? It's not necessarily impossible. Some ancient families have secret arts that can implant divine seeds in some immortal sprouts' bodies. As long as the lower world's Tao doctrine is planted into Chu Kuang's spiritual mark, then those people won't know that when they worship the divine statue, the faith energy will go to Chu Kuang. The question is whether or not Chu Kuang's spiritual strength can endure the impact of that power. For a moment, people could only wonder in amazement at just how much effort the Chu family had put into raising Chu Kuang. They had even prepared his path for faith energy so early. In the academy, the main reason for the God Institute and the Immortal Institute's divide was because the Immortal Institute's disciples looked down on this kind of cultivation method. Divine statues that were worshipped by others would create faith energy. It could then be used to cultivate or for battle. The more followers, the greater the faith energy. Some God cultivators would use their faith energy to help their believers walk proper cultivation paths. However, such people were rare. The majority of them were like blood-sucking leeches. They absorbed that faith energy only for their own use and imparted extreme beliefs onto their believers, ordering them to increase the number of believers no matter what in order to maximize the amount of faith energy they could absorb. For example, amongst the many God inheritances that Long Chen had come into contact with, there were those like the wealth god and the wine god whose main directive was not to spread their own beliefs, but to guide people to the correct cultivation path. However, the majority were like the corrupt god, the killing god, Lord Brahma, fallen day-night, and the like. They only wished to spread and make demands on their believers, taking their faith energy, essentially treating them as fools. As for immortal cultivators, they sought to comprehend the heavenly Taos. Using the heavens as a mirror and the Tao as the base, they measured heaven and earth, seeking the mysteries of the Taos in the world. They relied on their own power to raise their cultivation base, unlike gods. Thus, to the immortal cultivators, God cultivators were contemptible tricksters. One relied on their own efforts, while the other relied on conning others. This naturally resulted in the immortal cultivators looking down on God cultivators. For God cultivators to obtain greater faith energy, they needed greater backgrounds to carve out their own territories. They would pass their power through the wall of ascension to imprint their marks on divine statues of the lower world. It sounded simple, but such a thing actually cost a ridiculous amount of resources. To put it frankly, God cultivators were people with money. Without money, they would have no choice but to choose the path of immortal cultivation. While the immortal cultivators looked down on God cultivators also looked down on immortal cultivators, mocking them for being poor. Thus, it was rare for any faction to have friendly relations between the immortal cultivators and the God cultivators. Of course, there were those who walked both paths of cultivation. This required both money and comprehension skills. Not only did they need to train in divine abilities and secret arts, but they were also required to use immortal arts to comprehend the heavenly Taos. A person simply didn't have enough time and energy to train in both paths, so most people who started on this path gave up and chose only one to continue. Training in both paths naturally made a person stronger, but with such a slow rate of progression, who would give you time to grow in this world full of strife and danger? Such people were picked off while they were still weak. Thus, the first rule of cultivation was to first choose one path to guarantee that you wouldn't be crushed by others. While it was possible to train as both a god and immortal, only a few people chose that option. The Immortal Institute's disciples felt scorn for Chu Kuang when they saw that he was already gathering faith energy, but they were also envious. It could be said that Chu Kuang was created out of money. At this moment, divine energy exploded out of Chu Kuang, forcing Long Chen back. Their bodies resurfaced. Chu Kuang was surrounded by divine flames, seemingly possessing endless power. Seeing this, Luo Ning clenched her fists and her teeth. Chu Kuang's path has long since been paved for him. Everyone was tricked. He has hidden himself far too deeply. Through this battle, Luo Ning understood what a true schemer was. Before the battle in the lava cave, they had all believed that Chu Kuang's power was only slightly greater than theirs. After that battle, both Luo Ning and Luo Bing learned that the difference was actually far larger. But then Long Chen's medicinal pills had allowed their bloodlines to undergo spiritual awakening, causing them to grow far stronger. With their confidence raised, they had thought that they would be able to fight him evenly at the very least. However, Long Chen was now forcing one trump card after another out of Chu Kuang. Every single one of those trump cards was shocking, and even this faith energy was used. Only now did both sisters realize just how foolish they had been. Not everyone was tricked. Long Chen was able to see through him. Whether it is in terms of power, vision, methods, or scheming, there's no way for us to compare to him, sighed Luo Bing. When the battle first began, she was worried about Long Chen. But as the battle progressed, she saw that his expression remained as calm as ever. It was an expression of victory already being in grasp. Even now that Chu Kuang was displaying even more shocking trump cards, she no longer felt as much shock as before. Instead, she was admiring Long Chen even more. This fellow that was even younger than her could only be called a monster. Big sis, you should consider having him marry into the Luo family, whispered Luo Ning into Luo Bing's ear. Luo Bing instantly blushed and glared at her before continuing to watch the battle. Chu Kuang's aura continued to force Long Chen further and further back. He then smiled sinisterly. Long Chen, I have 191 mortal worlds with my Tao doctrine in them. I have 5,763 divine statues, as well as countless followers. Their faith energy is the source of my power, making my power endless. What will you use to fight me? At that moment, he seemed to have become a heavenly god, an unrivaled existence. Are all liars so proud of themselves? Will they just openly flaunt their ability to trick others? What will I use to fight you? What a joke. External power is external. What is there to be proud of? Today, I'll show you that only the power that belongs to you is your actual power. As Long Chen formed hand seals, the 108,000 stars in his star diagram blazed with light. Their power poured into him. Chu Kuang's body, which was slowly rising, was suddenly smashed back into the earth. Boom! With this one stamp of his foot, Long Chen left a bottomless hole in the ground. The stars behind Long Chen's back shone brightly. It was as if an entire cosmos was on his back. The stars revolved with supreme might. At the bottom of that cosmos was Long Chen in his black robes. His gaze was like that of a ruler, so imposing that others didn't dare to look directly at him. With the support of the star diagram, the mysterious feeling around him, and the way he crushed the indomitable Chu Kuang beneath his foot, it caused countless maidens to feel a rush of emotions. Bastard, that starry river of the sky art is a forbidden technique. Who permitted him to train in it? Roared Chu Huairen. Chu Huairen was clearly starting to panic. He no longer had his old, calm confidence and was growing more and more uneasy. Long Chen was like a bottomless well. All kinds of trump cards were pouring out of him. Chu Huairen had also heard of the starry river of the sky art, and he knew about its terror. Since he had no idea how Long Chen had managed to successfully train in it, in his fury, he directly demanded who had responsibility over this. It was me. What about it? Suddenly, from an unremarkable seat, an old man in gray robes and a bamboo hat spoke up. Institute head. Countless people cried out in shock. That elder was the head of the Immortal Institute, and he had also run over here to watch at some point. No one had noticed him before. For even the Institute head to personally come to watch some little competition between Outer Academy disciples, it was practically inconceivable. Chu Huairen had not expected him to appear here. Although he was one of the 3 heads of the Discipline Institute, in terms of status, he was still a level lower than the head of the Immortal Institute. He could only thicken his skin and say, Long Chen is an outer academy disciple. He isn't qualified to train in a forbidden technique. Don't you think giving him this technique is unfair? The institute head slowly took off his hat, revealing a thin face. He had a white beard and white eyebrows. The wrinkles on his face were plenty and deep. Despite that, his gaze was extremely sharp, giving off a domineering and stubborn feeling. Aren't you stretching the realm of your authority? Is the Discipline Institute planning on telling my Immortal Institute how to raise our disciples? Rules are rules. If a disciple wishes to read a forbidden technique, then the institute head will evaluate whether or not they are allowed to, based on individual circumstances. The academy raises its disciples with an emphasis on teaching each disciple what they need on an individual basis. Are you saying that I need to ask for your permission when I teach my disciples? Asked the institute head frostily, not giving Huairen any face. Those familiar with the institute head knew that he was an extremely strict and straightforward person. Moreover, he was always serious and rarely appeared in public. Even some elders that had been in the academy for decades didn't know what he looked like. Huairen was left speechless. He might be one of the 3 heads of the Discipline Institute, but that left him with only a third of the authority. He truly wasn't in charge of whether or not Long Chen could cultivate the starry river of the sky art. Even if the institute head had given this technique to Long Chen for selfish reasons, it would not be up to him to criticize Long Chen. Since this was the case, his expression sank, and he could only sit back down. The head judge couldn't help having a small smile surfaced on his face. Huairen was starting to panic and had run himself right into the tip of a spear. The head of the Immortal Institute was famed for his temper. He wouldn't give any face to someone accusing him of something. Are you incubating an egg down there? Don't secretly accumulate energy. I know you have more trump cards. Use them all. I won't interrupt you. Just at this moment, Long Chen's voice rang out in everyone's ears, startling them. They hastily pulled their gaze from Huairen's panicked expression and looked at the battlefield. Long Chen was actually floating in the air. With the star diagram behind him, ripples appeared around him, letting him stay in the air. He was currently looking down at a large hole in the ground, his hands clasped behind him. After waiting and waiting, he finally spoke up. Suddenly, chanting could be heard coming from down below. After that, a terrifying aura rose out of the giant hole, and Chu Kuang's figure flew out of the ground. This aura. At this moment, even the head of the Immortal Institute was shocked. The head judge exclaimed, "He's receiving God energy? Chu Kuang actually has a god he worships?" Faith energy could go both ways. From the lower world, believers could pass this energy through the divine statues with a god's mark in them. But it could also go the other way. A believer could receive a trace of the god's power. Chu Kuang was still suppressed even after receiving his faith energy, and now he was receiving God energy as a believer. This aura was something that made even those on the level of the head judge feel palpitations. Although that power was nothing to them, it was the aura contained within that power that made them nervous. It meant that whoever it was that Chu Kuang believed in, it was an incredibly terrifying figure. At this moment, the 4 balls of light behind Chu Kuang formed a square space, and within it was an illusory figure. That terrifying aura came from this figure. What is that? This time, even Luo Bing was shocked. This 4 divine beast golden body of Chu Kuang's was completely different from what she knew of. The Luo family did not have records of this kind of divine ability. Some kind of divine energy thrummed within Chu Kuang's body, and this supreme god's might made the world quiver. Chu Kuang's aura was now completely different from before. Long Chen, kneel and face your death. Chu Kuang's voice echoed through the air. It was like an imperial edict, one that made everyone submit. Everyone watching was stunned. How was it that Chu Kuang had become so terrifying? Let alone divine flame disciples, even 4 peak elders were horrified. This aura made them want to flee. It was an instinctual reverence from their souls. Naturally, what they felt reverence for wasn't Chu Kuang, but that aura coming from the figure behind him. That figure was extremely hazy. It could only vaguely be seen to be human, but no further details could be seen. Even so, It was still absolutely terrifying. However, Long Chen's pupils shrank, and his eyes instantly turned red. The name of that figure roared through his mind. Lord Brahma. Although the figure was indistinct and it was impossible to tell its features, that aura was something carved into Long Chen's bones and heart. On the Martial Heaven continent, in a fit of rage, he had activated his purgatory eyes, looking through space and time to see Lord Brahma. That one look had caused the Martial Heaven continent to be destroyed. If it weren't for the dragon expert helping, Long Chen and everyone on the continent would have been wiped out. The position of the one that Long Chen hated most in the world could only belong to Lord Brahma, and it wasn't just from the will deep within his soul anymore. Now, this figure made him think of the Pill Fairy. To protect him, the Pill Fairy had willingly become Pill Valley's divine daughter. Pill Valley's mission had been to overlook the Martial Heaven continent and see if any 9-star heirs appeared. When the Pill Fairy died in Long Chen's embrace, Long Chen's hatred of Lord Brahma reached a level that could not be described with words. Now Long Chen was completely sure why he loathed Chu Kuang. Killing intent then exploded out of him, and his body was quivering. Seeing him quiver, the experts outside were startled. Long Chen was actually so shaken by Chu Kuang's aura that he was quivering. That could only mean that he was powerless to resist and about to be killed. It wasn't just the spectators who thought like that. Chu Kuang was of the same opinion. Kneel and face your death. That's your only option. The divine energy flowing out of Chu Kuang was no longer a power that belonged to him. With a thought, life could be born. And with another thought, it could be extinguished. This was also Chu Kuang's first time using this power, but as he felt it coursing through his veins, while it also caused him great harm, it also gave him the feeling of absolute control, causing him to throw everything else to the back of his mind. In fact, despite the constant damage to his body, he wasn't in a rush to kill Long Chen. He wanted to torment Long Chen before taking his head. You're wrong. My choice is to kill you both. Long Chen clenched his teeth, and flames almost burst out of his eyes. 6-star battle armor. With an inward roar, the image of a 6-point star appeared in his eyes. As for the starry river behind him, 6 stars lit up within it, and a wild aura erupted. Boom! As Long Chen stamped on the air, space collapsed beneath his foot, and he shot toward Chu Kuang like a bolt of lightning, his fist hurtling toward him. An unrivaled will and an explosive killing intent twisted and turned. This sudden eruption from Long Chen shocked everyone. The current Long Chen's aura had also completely changed, just like Chu Kuang's. While Long Chen had appeared calm and indifferent the entire time before, now his eyes were scarlet, and it was like he was a devil from hell. That killing intent gave people chills. On the other hand, Chu Kuang sneered and divine light spread from his saber. He slashed it at Long Chen, and the result was a huge explosion that shook heaven and earth. Both of their figures vanished, replaced by a ball of light that rapidly spread until it suddenly exploded. As a result, the grand formation of the plaza shattered, and everyone on the battlefield was blown back by their power. As for the experts surrounding the plaza, they instantly felt the aura of death envelop them. If those ripples reached them, it was unknown just how many of them would survive. Fortunately, a large hand suddenly descended, and the hole that had been made by their power was blocked by this hand. It was the head of the Immortal Institute who had done it. The hand transformed into millions of chains that wrapped around the formation, strengthening it. Seeing this, the other experts were at ease. Despite there being a formation, Long Chen and Chu Kuang's power was too great. Even though they were not within the same space, they had a feeling that those ripples would spell out death for them if struck. Now that they thought about it, considering that they were in separate spaces, their fear was rather embarrassing. However, when they saw the other disciples that sat closer to the barrier starting to flee, they smiled and felt better. Within the battlefield, the two auras continued to clash fiercely, and runes were raging in the air. It was a shocking sight. Is this really a battle between mortal transcendence disciples? Why does it feel like even 4 peak experts would be killed if they entered? Exclaimed an elder with disbelief. Other 4 peak experts also nodded. These auras were truly terrifying. Chu Kuang had some terrifying existence's aura, while Long Chen was no inferior. What Long Chen was fighting right now wasn't Chu Kuang but that mysterious existence behind him. Eventually, the runes cleared up a bit, allowing them to see Long Chen and Chu Kuang again. Long Chen's fist was smashing into Chu Kuang's saber, and ripples were spreading from between the fist and saber. Those tiny ripples made the air rumble like thunder. No one wanted to imagine what would happen if they were struck by those ripples. Long Chen, you aren't a match for me. Do you know who my god is? It is a supreme venerate, someone whose name shakes the 9 heavens and 10 lands. You think you can fight against me? Sneered Chu Kuang. The manifestation behind him ignited, and more divine energy poured into him, causing his aura to rapidly rise. Who does he think he is? I will sooner or later cut off his head and use it as a stool. I'll show you just who is the strongest. Long Chen suddenly roared. The 6 stars behind him formed 2 triangles and began to spin contrary to each other. At the same time, the 108,000 stars in his body ignited, every single one of them pouring energy into him. Boom! Long Chen's power exploded, and Chu Kuang was sent flying by his fist. How can this be? Chu Kuang was shocked, unable to believe his eyes. Just at that moment, Long Chen's second fist smashed into him. Heaven and earth shook from this one fist. Long Chen unleashed 3 punches, forcing Chu Kuang back 3 times. With every collision, a huge explosion shook the battlefield, and Long Chen's punches grew stronger and stronger. Heavens, have I gone crazy? Both their auras are still rising so crazily. People were shocked to find that as they thought, their power only grew. There was no end to their strength. Break! Long Chen suddenly roared. Followed by his roar, Chu Kuang's blood-colored saber was shattered by his punch. This bloodline spirit item was actually unable to continue blocking Long Chen's fists. With it gone, Long Chen's foot smashed into Chu Kuang's chest. Bang! Chu Kuang's body armor also exploded. With 1 fist and 1 foot, Chu Kuang's 2 spirit items were destroyed. Furthermore, at that moment, the manifestation behind him quivered. Chu Kuang's expression changed as his power had reached its limit. This was not his power, and if the fight dragged on, his battle prowess would start dropping. I'll kill you with 1 move. Having lost his blade and armor, Chu Kuang didn't retreat. Instead, his right arm shook, and the sleeve there exploded. At some point, layers of runes had appeared on his arm until it looked like it was made of steel. Suddenly, the manifestation behind him vanished, and 4 specks of light covered his fists. There was also a faint figure within those lights. Brahma 4 Divine Beast Punch. Chu Kuang concentrated all of his power on a single attack. This was the strongest attack of his life, and life or death would be decided here. Chu Kuang concentrated all his manifestation's power into a single fist. Space began to twist around it furiously. Long Chen snorted and extended a hand. A lotus mark appeared on his palm. The lotus had 9 petals, and 9 stars appeared on every petal. When this flame lotus appeared, the entire world changed color. Just now, the sun had been high and bright in the sky. Now, countless rainbow clouds covered the sky, shocking everyone. A manifestation of the heavenly Daos, 7-color auspicious clouds. Could it be that the magical art in Long Chen's hand was made by himself? It has been acknowledged by heaven and earth. The experts present were stunned. Legend was that when powerful divine arts appeared in this world, they would be acknowledged by the heavenly Daos, and the 7-color auspicious cloud manifestation would descend. Divine arts that could be acknowledged by the immortal world were all exceedingly terrifying. Those were techniques that an entire sect could be founded upon. A lower world ascender like Long Chen could create such a technique at such a young age? Those who had managed to create their own divine arts that were recognized by the immortal world's heavenly Daos were essentially all famous figures within the immortal world's history. As for Long Chen, for a moment, everyone could only stare at him in disbelief. A small flame dragon coiled around Long Chen's arm. Its body began to dim, but the lotus instantly began radiating brilliant light. World Extermination Flame Lotus. Long Chen smashed his palm at Chu Kuang's fist. Victory or defeat would be decided here. Boom. In front of countless shocked gazes, one palm and one fist collided. The entire plaza shuddered, and the barrier around the battlefield collapsed. Gusts of wind blew past these experts, feeling like knives on their skin. Fortunately, the head of the Immortal Institute still had his defense up, so no one was injured. The terrain within the battlefield had completely changed. The original tall mountain range where Long Chen and Chu Kuang had been fighting was now a plain of ruins. At the center, one of Long Chen's arms was bare. In the end, he was unable to protect that sleeve. His aura was starting to grow chaotic. That attack had almost exhausted all of his energy. What Long Chen hadn't expected was that the World Extermination Flame Lotus would have even greater power in the immortal world. When it appeared, so much flame energy had automatically flowed towards it that he hadn't even needed to guide it. As long as time permitted it, the World Extermination Flame Lotus could have continued growing stronger limitlessly, but then Long Chen wouldn't be able to control it. In fact, his right hand was currently a bloody mess from using it. But he ignored it. He walked over to where Chu Kuang was laying. Half of Chu Kuang's body was gone. He no longer appeared as arrogant and indomitable as before. Instead, he looked like a half-dead dog, curled up with his body twitching. When he saw Long Chen coming towards him, he was filled with terror. He had lost. He wasn't a match for Long Chen. "Uncle, save me!" Chu Kuang suddenly shouted with all his power. The void shattered, and a figure came flying out of that space. That figure was fast, but Long Chen was even faster. He immediately appeared in front of Chu Kuang and grabbed his head, lifting him up like a chicken. The one who had come was Chu Huairen. He had immediately rushed over, but he was too late. The other magistrate also appeared. Just as they entered, Long Chen sensed an aura behind him. The head judge had come as well. "Long Chen, we admit defeat. Release Chu Kuang. You can set any conditions that you wish," said Chu Huairen. He had never dreamed that Chu Kuang would be defeated, especially not to some lower world ascender with no foundation or background. His reactions were just a bit too slow to save Chu Kuang. Now his life was in Long Chen's hands. Chu Huairen wanted to attack and kill Long Chen, snuffing out this terrifying existence while he could. But he couldn't. Big word. "I don't want anything. I just want his life. Otherwise, I won't be able to face those brothers that died in battle here," said Long Chen with a cold smile. Did he really think that anyone could be bought with money? "Long Chen, do you know which god that the Chu family worships?" shouted the other magistrate. "Does it have anything to do with me?" Long Chen was well aware, but he acted like a fool. "I'm not afraid of telling you that it is the mighty divine venerate Brahma who controls almost half the powers within the 100 domains and 1,000 prefectures. If you kill Chu Kuang, you will also be killed. Not even the dean would be able to protect you," declared the magistrate. The other experts' expressions changed. No one had known that the Chu family had actually become one of divine venerate Brahma's subordinates. The name of divine venerate Brahma is supreme. Would he lie about this? The Chu family was defeated by the Luo family and almost wiped out. For them to suddenly rise again must be because of divine venerate Brahma. Heavens, if that's true, then their backer is truly huge. The Luo family is doomed. What a lack of justice. This trash Chu Kuang actually has such a background. No one can touch him. Luo Bing and Luo Ning shivered. This huge secret was actually exposed today. It was the worst news to the Luo family. The Chu family had divine venerate Brahma's support? Then how would the Luo family fight them? How could they avoid being wiped out? Divine venerate Brahma? What crap is that? How come I've never heard of such a thing? And so what? Do you think I'm afraid? Sneered Long Chen. Brahma? Tch, even if Brahma didn't come for him, Long Chen would be the one finding him. Just wait. He might not be able to beat him now, but who said he couldn't beat his followers? How brazen! You dare to blaspheme divine venerate Brahma? You are courting death. Raged the magistrate. Long Chen slapped Chu Kuang's face, causing more blood to spray out of him. Chu Kuang screamed. Old ghost, do you want to try cursing me again? Let's see just which one of us is tougher. If you have the guts, don't stop. Long Chen shook Chu Kuang in front of him. That appearance of his was incredibly infuriating. Alright, our Chu family admits defeat. Long Chen, you are a generation's hero. The grudge that formed between us is due to the Luo family. Although those two girls are young and pretty, they aren't nation-toppling beauties. As long as you agree, the Chu family will give you 10,000 beauties like them. Their talent and looks will definitely not be inferior as well. If you are willing to release Chu Kuang, the Chu family is even willing to bestow you with unimaginable wealth. The Chu family is willing to form good relationships with someone of limitless potential like you. You can have everything. But if you let your temper get the better of you and you kill Chu Kuang, not only will you become the Chu family's mortal enemy, but you will also be provoking Divine Venerate Brahma. When the Chu family reports this to the Divine Venerate, the 9 underworld hunters will be dispatched. Then no matter where you run, you won't be able to escape. I trust that you'll make a wise choice, said Chu Huairen, his words containing both threats and rewards. He gave Long Chen both face and a way out. 9 underworld hunters? Asked Long Chen with interest. That expression of his gave Chu Huairen some confidence. He calmly said, "It seems that you know of the 9 underworld hunters. They are the #1 assassination organization within the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Their assassins are spread throughout every corner of the world. If they set their sights on you, they will become your worst nightmare. You won't even be able to close your eyes for fear that you'll lose your life with a single blink. Of course, you don't need to worry about this. The Chu family will live up to its promise. As long as you release Chu Kuang, everyone can benefit." Everyone stared at Long Chen, only to see him smile and say, "In truth, I don't want to offend your Chu family. You're right. In truth, I've been infatuated by those 2 beauties from the Luo family." Luo Bing and Luo Ning's hearts sank. They turned pale. But for the Luo family, I'd have to offend the Chu family and some Divine Venerate, as well as get chased down by some 9 underworld hunters. I'm getting afraid. Actually, I was just bragging when I said there's nothing I'm afraid of. Don't take it seriously, Long Chen laughed. The spectators couldn't help sighing. So Long Chen really was compromising. But not many could feel contempt for this. If the positions were changed, they also wouldn't dare to kill Chu Kuang because Divine Venerate Brahma was not someone they could provoke. Not even the Academy could provoke him. Otherwise, they wouldn't be the only ones that were killed. Their families would be wiped out as well. Although Long Chen was a lower world ascender, if he was investigated, then whatever world he had ascended from would probably be destroyed. This was the cultivation world, and power was everything. Reason? Principle? Justice? They were meaningless. Ah, that's good. In the future, you will be the Chu family's most respected guest. Chu Huairen laughed, concealing his disdain and ruthlessness. Once Chu Kuang was handed over, he would definitely think of some way to kill Long Chen. Today's battle had made Long Chen and Chu Kuang enemies that could not rest until one side was killed. How could they really let Long Chen off? I was originally thinking of letting him off, but that laugh of yours sounds like it contains hidden blades. It's a bit frightening. I suddenly don't feel so sure. What kind of person was Long Chen? How could he not understand what Chu Huairen intended? Chu Huairen's smile stiffened, and a bad feeling rose within him once again. But he still put on an innocent expression. No need to be afraid. Our Chu family is known for always keeping our word. Do we look like people who would break promises? Long Chen looked into the distance and hesitated. Clenching his teeth, he said, "Then how about this? In order to be safe, I'll only give you half of him for now. That way, I'll have more confidence." "Half? How can you give us half?" asked Chu Huairen. Long Chen then tightened his hand, and Chu Kuang's head was ripped off of his body. After that, Long Chen tossed the part below the neck to Chu Huairen. "I'll keep his head. Once you fulfill your promise, I'll return my half to you." Chu Kuang had yet to advance to the Divine Flame realm, so his Divine Flame seed was still in his dantian. With his head ripped off, he instantly died. He didn't even have time to make a sound. Originally, He was already starting to feel safe when he heard Long Chen and Chu Huairen's conversation. He even had a small smile on his face. Now, the expression that remained on his head was that of bewilderment. The light within his eyes slowly faded. Chu Huairen almost instinctively received Chu Kuang's body. His head was blank and everyone was silent. It was as if time had stopped. Luo Bing and Luo Ning covered their mouths, staring with wide eyes at this sudden turn. Just as the discussion ended, the main topic was killed. Long Chen, Chu Huairen and the other magistrate instantly exploded with killing intent and attacked. The heavenly Daos rumbled. Long Chen instantly found that he couldn't move, and he felt minuscule compared to this power. Yet he didn't show any fear. As expected, sword chi slashed through their auras. 2 hands were pierced by this sword, and the locking power was instantly destroyed, giving Long Chen his freedom again. However, the only difference was that the head judge was now standing in front of him. To disturb the exams of disciples and even try to kill a disciple, you have knowingly broken the law as the heads of the Discipline Institute. Kneel and face your punishment, shouted the head judge. You! Chu Huairen was alarmed. Just now, they had attacked, thinking that one could stop the head judge, while the other could kill Long Chen. However, with a single sword, the head judge pierced both their palms. He was too fast for them to even track with their eyes. Despite being in the same realm, their actual combat power was worlds apart. This head judge that came from the Battle God Palace was simply far too powerful for them. Kneel and face your punishment. This is your second warning, barked the head judge. Chu Huairen and the other magistrates' expressions suddenly changed. They thought of a certain matter. Kneel and face your punishment. This is your third dash. Without a word, the 2 of them knelt down. The 3 heads of the Discipline Institute had actually fought here, with 2 of them kneeling in defeat. The head judge's expression was cold, but he sighed inside. The 2 of them had reacted fast enough. If they hadn't knelt with the 3rd warning, he would have been able to righteously kill them. It was a shame. Just at this moment, in the distance, the clouds shook. A pillar of light soared from the altar. Mu Qingyun and the other disciples of the Unfettered Alliance were covered in blood, but in their hands was the flag. They stood on the altar in victory. As for the Prime Glory Alliance's disciples, they had been killed. When Long Chen and Chu Kuang broke the formation, it made it impossible for them to admit defeat and be transported out. After breaking inside and killing them, the Unfettered Alliance set up their own barrier and lit the lamps up, obtaining the flag. Only then did the barrier go down. However, when the barrier went down, it revealed a completely deformed battlefield. It was no longer recognizable. Where are we? Did we die? No, we can't be dead, right? Are we in spiritual states? Brother San. Mu Qingyun spotted Long Chen's black figure and cried out. Brother San has also died? What nonsense is that? None of us is dead. Just at this moment, multiple figures entered the battlefield. Those were the ones in charge of healing the injured as well as cleaning up the battlefield. Chu Huairen and the other magistrate were chained by a group of law enforcement disciples and carried away. However, before leaving, they both glared at Long Chen. Despite not saying anything, their sinister gazes said everything for them. The Chu family would not rest when it came to its vengeance against him. Being glared at by them, Long Chen cursed, "What are you staring at? Didn't you promise me 10,000 beauties? I gave you half, so you should give me half at least. Why are you reneging now? Didn't you say that the Chu family never broke its promises? That your word is gold? Peh, how shameless." The 2 of them almost coughed up blood. Was there anyone more shameless than Long Chen in the world? He had already killed Chu Kuang yet came to them with demands for beauties? Head judge, many thanks. Once the 2 of them were dragged away, Long Chen cupped his fists to the head judge. I should be the one thanking you. Hopefully, some tumors have been removed this time. Little brother, you're very powerful. You have limitless potential. Most important of all, you have that unbending Tao heart. That's the core of a man. You've revealed your outstanding talent this time, but be careful. The tree that stands highest in the forest is the one buffeted by the most destructive wind. You will have to face even greater challenges in the future. The head judge patted Long Chen's shoulder. Long Chen's power had truly surpassed his expectations. Hence, he was admiring his senior brother Zhan Feng more and more. That day, he had sent the head judge a spiritual message to take note of Long Chen and that his potential was shocking. The head judge had also felt that Long Chen was very powerful, but he had definitely not expected Long Chen to have reached this level. He was practically a monster. It's fine. Since I dare to excel, I'm not afraid of the wind, said Long Chen. I have to leave now. I will report this to the institute head, and hopefully the two of them will be removed, said the head judge, vanishing. At this moment, others ran over, quivering with fear. Boss San. What is it? Hurry up, said Long Chen impatiently. About the head. Can you hand it over to us? It's one of the rules of the competition, said that disciple fearfully. Why would I want this thing? You can have it. With how pale you look, I think you should use it for soup to replenish your blood qi. Chen tossed Chu Kuang's head to him. The reason why Long Chen had wanted to keep Chu Kuang's head was because he was worried Chu Kuang might have some secret art to continue surviving as just a head. He had been planning on testing it a few times. However, Chu Huairen hadn't fought for the head, so he had clearly been worried for nothing. For someone in the mortal transcendence to lose their head, they could only die. That disciple fearfully received the head, and his face really was frighteningly pale. Using a person's head for soup? Disgusting. After that, another disciple gave him a transportation talisman. When he crushed it, Long Chen was brought back to the plaza. When he reappeared, he could no longer see the ruined battlefield. This place had been returned to its original appearance. The spectators had also left. Only Luo Bing, Luo Ning, and the disciples of the Unfettered Alliance remained. Mu Qingyun was the first to run over and grab Long Chen's hand, excitedly crying out, "Brother San, we won! We won! We're Inner Academy disciples!" This victory was hard-won. They had lost all hope of winning multiple times but had successfully won thanks to their efforts. Mu Qingyun was so emotional that her eyes were wet. Long Chen said, "This is the path of cultivation. Once you step onto it, there is no other choice. You must continue to advance. Live better. Cultivate better. You have to rise to even higher places in place of your fallen brothers. You must see even better scenery so that they can be proud of you." Mu Qingyun and the others nodded. This one battle had made them grow. Battlefields were there to truly temper people. Today, they had gone through an important transformation of their lifetime. Long Chen, thank you. At this moment, Luo Bing walked over. Long Chen had declined the Chu family's enticement, even killing Chu Kuang despite their threats. He was now truly mortal enemies with the Chu family. A large part of that was because of Luo Bing and Luo Ning, so her gratitude toward Long Chen could not be expressed with just a single thanks. But she also didn't know what else to say. No need to thank me. The main thing is that I simply didn't believe that old fellow's lies. How could I possibly believe that he could find 10,000 beauties like you? Does he think I'm a fool? I'd have definitely slapped him if I could. Long Chen laughed. Luo Bing and Luo Ning also laughed. This fellow really knew how to talk. After the battle, everyone went to rest. After all, Long Chen was quite tired. That final attack had used up all his energy. He didn't know what was going on, but in the immortal world, the power of the world extermination flame Lotus had grown to the point that it almost couldn't be controlled. Even he was injured by it. It seemed that the flame essence in the immortal world was too dense, so a huge amount of energy was absorbed by it in just an instant. Long Chen almost didn't dare to imagine what would happen if he also activated the Nirvana scripture. Would that explode himself? After returning to his house, Long Chen installed some alerting formations around. He then summoned Hua Long as a bodyguard for himself. The Chu family's presence within the academy was too great for him to assume that he wouldn't be sneak attacked. After setting that up, he simply fell asleep, and this sleep lasted 3 days and nights. If Mu Qingyun hadn't come, he would have continued sleeping. "Brother San, we're going to the Inner Academy to check in," said Mu Qingyun. she had a new set of robes on her. The Unfettered Alliance had obtained victory in the divine competition. Hence, all of them had become Inner Academy disciples, and today was the day to check in. The check-in time was noon, but Mu Qingyun and the others were so excited that they were ready as soon as the sun rose. However, when Long Chen didn't show up, Mu Qingyun went over to his house with Zhong Ling and Zhong Xiu. Long Chen silently recalled Hua Long. He was still sleepy and could barely open his eyes. His final exchange against Chu Kuang seemed to have severely exhausted something within his body. It could only be replenished through sleep. However, today was the day to check in, so he had no choice but to get up. Zhong Ling and Zhong Xiu giggled and washed his face with water to get him awake, making him feel pampered. "Brother San, you really are amazing. Even that monster Chu Kuang was killed by you," said Mu Qingyun worshipfully. Even though she hadn't fully witnessed his final battle with Chu Kuang, she had learned the details from other people. Chu Kuang's trump cards had come out one after another, but he had still been defeated. That battle had practically shaken heavens and earth. However, Long Chen shook his head. Chu Kuang's power wasn't his own. It all came from somewhere else. He wasn't able to control it, so defeating him is only natural. Hee, I really like that attitude, unlike those so-called geniuses that start prancing like a peacock after the tiniest accomplishments, said Zhong Ling. There were practically stars of worship in her eyes when she looked at Long Chen. In the entire academy, Long Chen's name was practically known to all. This generation's human tier competition of the God Institute could be said to be the grandest of all history. The three heads of the Discipline Institute had come, and the Institute head of the Immortal Institute had personally descended. Because of it, Long Chen's fame soared. Having fought alongside him, they also felt extremely proud. Even now, they were unable to settle their emotions. Long Chen had slept for 3 days, but they were so excited for 3 days that they hadn't even been able to sleep. In truth, they hadn't even fully recovered their physical energy from how excited they were. Long Chen smiled. A full bottle doesn't make noise, but a half-full one rattles when shaken. Mature weather bends, but withered wheat stands tall. The ones with no ability are those that try to stand out the most. Long Chen took out his robes. In the last battle, the final attack had blasted apart his sleeve. After that, he had picked up the scraps and now began to sew them back together. With his shoddy workmanship, the tears were not well hidden at all. It was uneven and rather ugly. Mu Qingyun knew how important these robes were to Long Chen and said, "Brother San, I can help you sew them back together." "I didn't really study those arts, but I have sewn a bit as a child. I should be able to sew them back together better and make it more comfortable to wear. No, I want to do it myself. The work being ugly doesn't matter to me. It's not like I'm looking for anyone to like how I look." Long Chen smiled. Mu Qingyun couldn't help feeling slightly disappointed. Clearly, Long Chen didn't want others to touch these robes. Perhaps this was also another covert kind of rejection. However, he had said that he viewed her like a little sister. Although she felt a bit bad, she quickly settled those feelings. "Brother San, you said that these robes were made by your loved ones. What did you mean by ones?" asked Zhong Xiu with a giggle. Long Chen also laughed. "No need to be so indirect. You can ask me just how many sister-in-laws you'll have. I can tell you. I just knew that a hero like Brother San would have multiple wives. That's the only way to match you," said Zhong Ling. Long Chen shook his head. "You're still children. Real love isn't wanting to be with someone because they look beautiful. That's just liking someone, or more accurately, liking their looks. When you love someone, you don't need to just like their beautiful side, but you also have to embrace all their faults. Many times love requires giving far more than you get. That's why the fruit of love is oftentimes more bitter than sweet." "What? If love is more bitter than sweet, who would want it?" asked Zhong Ling, because just that bit of sweetness in the bitterness is enough to fully satisfy someone. A person can be wounded 99 times, but on the 100th time, when their loved one's hand brushes past their cheek, that warmth is enough to settle all the pain in their heart and make it worth it. Rather than saying that love is a bitter fruit, It might be better to say it's poison with no cure. Despite knowing it's poison, you will still swallow it in one gulp with no regrets, said Long Chen, brushing his sleeve with his hand. Looking at these robes, he thought of Meng Qi, Chu Yao, Tang Wana, Yu Zhiqiu, Dong Mingyu, Yu Shaoqian, Ziyan, as well as Leng Yuan and Ming Cangyue in the netherworld. He also thought of Yu Qingxian, who may or may not have reincarnated in an unknown location. He didn't know where in the immortal world they were. The competition within the immortal world was even tougher than on the martial heaven continent. He didn't know if they were doing well. He also thought of his brothers in the Dragonblood Legion. They had all been sent throughout the immortal world by the dragon race expert. He didn't know if they had managed to grasp their own opportunities. Long Chen wished to gather everyone immediately, but he also knew that it wasn't realistic. He couldn't possibly find them. In a place as vast as the immortal world, searching for them was like scouring the sea for tiny needles. The only thing he could do was raise his fame to the point that the name of Boss Long San resounded throughout the entire immortal world. Once the Dragonblood warriors heard this news of him, they would definitely gather toward him. Now, he had managed to take one small step in that direction. His name was now known throughout the entire Outer Academy. It was time to enter the Inner Academy, and through the High Firmament Academy, he would create a resounding name for himself. Eventually, his name would spread far and wide, and the Dragonblood warriors would come to him one by one. Thinking of how he could be by the side of those brothers who had fought alongside him, he felt his blood heating up. Long Chen quickly finished the sewing. It was definitely ugly, but he didn't mind. As long as it was together, it was fine. He didn't care what others thought about it. After making himself presentable, even his damaged robes weren't able to conceal his handsome air. Mu Qingyun and the others' eyes shone. The current Long Chen appeared even more powerful than before. When he walked out, he saw that the Unfettered Alliance's disciples were already waiting. Boss San. Li Kai had fully recovered and led everyone in a cheer when they saw Long Chen. Through this battle, this group of youth soldiers had become true experts. Let's go. I heard that the competition is even more intense in the Inner Academy, right? I want to see if there's anyone even more arrogant than Chu Kuang in the Earth Tier Divine rankings. Long Chen led everyone toward the Inner Academy in high spirits. Long Chen and the others sat on a flying boat, and they spent 4 full hours flying before a bright sun-like ball of light appeared in front of him. Brother San, the Inner Academy is up ahead. The Unfettered Alliance's disciples all grew emotional. That was their life's dream. When Long Chen saw that ball of light, he knew that it was a grand formation. From the books he read, he learned that the Inner Academy was the core of the High Firmament Academy. Its area was almost 4 times that of the Martial Heaven continent, and the Grand Spirit Gathering formation made the density of spiritual qi here almost 10 times greater than in the outside world. Furthermore, Inner Academy elite disciples had many special privileges, with benefits that were thousands of times greater than Outer Academy disciples. This was also why Mu Qingyun would put everything on the line just to enter the Inner Academy and become an elite disciple. Only by becoming an elite disciple would the Academy be willing to spend many times the resources to raise you. After becoming an Inner Academy disciple, the Academy's resources would pour toward them. It could be said that within the Academy, the monthly benefits given to the disciples were only the bare minimum. If they wanted to cultivate faster, then it was far from enough. Whether it was Mu Qingyun, Luo Bing, or Luo Ning, their families would send them a large number of immortal crystals every year as supplies, or just the monthly benefits would cause them to be quickly left behind by others. However, upon becoming Inner Academy disciples, the Academy would give them so many resources, which practically couldn't be bought with money. This was also why they wished to enter the Inner Academy so badly. At this moment, the flying boat slowly passed through the light, and the runes on the boat lit up. If it weren't for those runes, this flying boat would not be able to enter this region. Because Long Chen and the others had yet to enter the Divine Flame realm, they couldn't use the transportation formations. Hence, they could only use the flying boat. The scene before them instantly changed. They flew above an ancient forest whose crowns lay among the clouds. Within the clouds, it was like a natural painting. How pretty! It's practically a wonderland, sighed Zhongling. A wonderland? A slight smile appeared on his face. In the lower world, they had viewed the immortal world as a wonderland. They thought that inhabitants were all gods and immortals, living worry-free lives, living forever, never aging. However, after ascending, he found that this place was even crueler than the mortal world. Where was the so-called wonderland? Suddenly, a group of cranes flew out of the clouds, forming a rainbow behind them. It's the Academy's rainbow cranes. We're actually witnessing auspicious animals. Does that mean we're about to be blessed by good luck? Zhongling cried out excitedly. The rainbow crane was an auspicious animal, and it was different from other cranes. It was noble and sacred, it didn't consume other creatures, and it never killed. Its sustenance was the spiritual qi of the air. Legend was that the rainbow crane enjoyed freedom, and it didn't necessarily stay in the same place. Legend was that wherever it went, that place was an auspicious land. The rainbow cranes didn't like to live in human abodes. It was said that the bloody and brutal side of humans drove them away. If someone chose to live nearby, they would rather leave. It was also said that as soon as the rainbow crane was driven away, the auspicious land would be turned into an inauspicious land. It was unknown if that was true or not, but many people believed in it. Apparently, only after the High Firmament Academy was built did the rainbow cranes come here. After that, the High Firmament Academy sternly forbade anyone from disturbing the rainbow cranes. If anyone did, they would be instantly expelled, no matter how great their background. There was a story about the daughter of an institute head who had chased after a rainbow crane due to curiosity. She was then directly expelled and forbidden from ever taking half a step into the academy again. After that, people grew more curious about the rainbow cranes, but they could only watch from a distance. People rarely got a chance to see the rainbow cranes because sometimes they would only appear once every few years or even decades. Hence, those who encountered them were all those with immense luck. Upon spotting the rainbow cranes, Mu Qingyun hastily stopped the flying boat. This was one of the rules of the academy. They couldn't disturb the rainbow cranes. The rainbow cranes were mostly white, but the top of their wings and their tails had some black feathers. And for some reason, when they flapped their wings, they left rainbow tracks in the air. It was an unknown mystery. The rainbow cranes flew by their flying boat. Seeing this, Mu Qingyun and the others were enchanted. These were beautiful life forms, so beautiful that it was suffocating. Just as Mu Qingyun was waiting until the rainbow cranes passed before continuing onward, they suddenly turned back and flew toward the flying boat once more. Heavens, they're coming back! We can actually see the rainbow cranes at such a close distance, exclaimed Li Kai and the others. Normally, the rainbow cranes didn't like people's auras, so they would hide far away as soon as they sensed people. Hence, they almost didn't dare to believe that the rainbow cranes were coming so close. The rainbow cranes were exceptionally beautiful. If they flew around a woman dancing, it would be the very embodiment of a raiment of rainbows and feathers. It was a beauty that could make a person forget all their vexations. Long Chen quietly watched those beautiful figures and slowly smiled. These were the most beautiful life forms that he had ever seen. There were 70 to 80 of them. They weren't that large, about the same height as a human, and they also didn't have any powerful auras. Also, they didn't have any natural predators. It was said that even beasts would rather starve to death than hunt them. The rainbow cranes began to fly around the flying boat, stunning Mu Qingyun and the others. What was going on? No one mess around. Don't harm the rainbow cranes. A voice suddenly rang out from outside the flying boat. There were people shouting at them from the sky. Clearly, everything here was being monitored. Perhaps they weren't monitoring them, but they were protecting the rainbow cranes. The rainbow cranes continued to circle around the flying boat, shocking even the supervisors. They didn't know what was going on. If the rainbow cranes were injured and fled, then whether it was Long Chen or them, they would be doomed. However, those rainbow cranes simply continued to circle the flying boat, refusing to leave. "Open the door," said Long Chen. "Boss San," exclaimed Li Kai. "Bastard, did you not hear? Don't open the door or..." the previous voice rang out angrily. However, Long Chen didn't listen. He directly opened the door with his hand and walked out. "You're courting death." The voice was enraged, seemingly to the point of wanting to kill Long Chen. But Long Chen still ignored him. Long Chen walked to the top of the flying boat, and those rainbow cranes immediately began to circle him. One of them then landed in front of him. Suddenly, rainbow light covered that crane, and it transformed into an immaculate girl appearing between 7 and 8 years old. "Big brother, you're a good person. Can you bring me out to play?" The girl spoke, her black and white eyes so clear that they were like bottomless wells without any impurity. Mu Qingyun and the others were stunned, staring in shock at that pretty girl. However, they didn't dare to believe their eyes. Rainbow cranes could take human form? In the immortal world, the beasts had to become one with heaven and earth, obtaining the approval of the Daos in order to take human form. However, those beasts were existences far beyond their current imagination. If they hadn't personally witnessed it, they wouldn't believe that this girl was actually a rainbow crane. The reason Long Chen came out was because he sensed a spiritual fluctuation. It was as if this rainbow crane was greeting him. Looking at this girl that was so delicate that she appeared like a porcelain doll, Long Chen couldn't help but smile. He squatted down until he was the same height as her. "Little sister, how do you know that I'm a good person? In truth, this big brother isn't a good person. Did you misjudge?" asked Long Chen with a smile. Long Chen was a good person? Ignoring whether or not others would believe such a statement, even he himself didn't believe it. However, with such an adorable girl calling him a good person, even though he didn't care how others viewed him, he had to admit that he was happy. The rainbow crane race can't misjudge people. Big brother is a good person. How about you play with me? I just slept for 3,000 years, and now I want to go out and play. But my dad and mom won't let me leave this region. The girl pulled on Long Chen's hand pleadingly. Long Chen was startled. 3,000 years? How old are you? Based on your human race's historical measures, it's been 80,000 years since I was born. Your academy's dean has changed 3 times. But I spent most of that time sleeping, so I didn't get to interact with other people. Actually, other than you, other people give me an uncomfortable feeling. I can't play with them. So how about you play with me? The girl looked at Long Chen with her big eyes expectantly. No one could say no to such a face. 80,000 years? 3 generations of deans? And he was the big brother? Long Chen's head was swimming. He should be calling her grandaunt. However, looking at her expectant expression, he said, "No problem. When your big brother has time, I'll bring you out to pay. But today, big brother has important things to do, so I can't accompany you. I'll give you a gift instead." Long Chen gave her a yuan spirit pill he had refined. It was a pill to replenish spiritual strength and immortal spiritual energy. Moreover, there was a star revolving on top of it with mist around the whole pill. It was nice to look at. The girl had never seen such a thing and happily received it. She then repeatedly thanked him. "Big brother, I won't disturb you any longer. I'll come find you later." After that, the girl returned to the form of a rainbow crane. After another circle around Long Chen, she left with the other rainbow cranes, leaving beautiful rainbow arcs in their wake before vanishing. Watching them leave, Mu Qingyun and the others felt like they were in a dream. They had not just seen the rainbow cranes but also one that transformed into human form. Just at this moment, a flying boat appeared in midair, barging straight toward Mu Qingyun's flying boat. Seeing this, Mu Qingyun and the others cried out. But just a few feet from crashing into them, that flying boat came to a stop, leaving them covered in cold sweat. None of them would have survived such a collision. "You've got guts to ignore orders." 4 people walked off of the flying boat. They were all 4 peak experts. What shocked Mu Qingyun and the others was that these 4 peak experts were only wearing disciple robes. They weren't elders. Furthermore, they appeared very young. "Who are you? Report your name," shouted one of them angrily. He was the one in charge of overseeing and protecting the rainbow cranes. And since Long Chen hadn't listened to his orders and had gone out, it infuriated him. Although the rainbow cranes had ultimately left unscathed, he still came to settle things with Long Chen. "I'll return those words to you. Don't point at others with your finger," said Long Chen with a frown. The attitude of this guy was irritating. Afraid of conflict, Li Kai immediately stepped forward. "Let me introduce you. This is Dash." "Shut up. Who do you think you are? You aren't qualified to talk here." Li Kai was immediately chided. "Outer disciple robes? Did you come to check in?" One of them suddenly noticed Li Kai and the other's robes. Before this, they had only been focused on Long Chen, who was wearing his tattered black robes. But now they seemed to realize something. A group of novices dared to act arrogantly? Are you aware that the death rate of inner academy disciples is thousands of times greater than outer academy disciples? You have no ability to be arrogant here. Otherwise, in the future, you'll die without even realizing how you died, sneered one of them. Mu Qingyun and the others' expressions changed. They had been looking forward to growing in the inner academy, but before they even checked in, they were already blocked by a group of tyrannical people. Hence, their good mood vanished, and it was replaced with fury. "Are you mute? Speak," shouted the leader. He then reached for Long Chen's throat angrily. Li Kai and the others cried out in shock. They immediately realized that things were about to go sour. Long Chen also hadn't expected this person to dare to attack him here. At this close range, this person's hand was already approaching his clothes. If Long Chen immediately retreated, he was 90% sure that he could dodge completely. But if he was one step too slow, that person would be able to tear off his robes, and that might completely destroy them. After all, the stitching he was using to keep them together wasn't very good. Seeing Long Chen's collar being grabbed by that person, Mu Qingyun and the others' expressions changed. They had a premonition that something bad was about to happen. "What's your name?" demanded Long Chen coldly. "Brat, you have guts." "I am Zhang Peng." "What about it? Do you want vengeance? You newbies don't know how high the heavens are. I've seen plenty of you before," sneered that person. "Starting today, you can change your name to Zhang Peng." Long Chen suddenly kneed Zhang Peng below his abdomen, and an explosive sound rang out. Everyone heard the sound of flesh exploding. Li Kai and the others shivered. Every man knew just how vicious this move of Long Chen's was, and they couldn't help feeling a chill. As a result, Zhang Peng's body bent, and his eyes almost popped out. The hand holding Long Chen was released. At this moment, Zhang Peng was like a dried-up shrimp lying on the ground, quivering in pain. He was in too much pain to even make a sound. The other three people were shocked, but before they could react, dozens of weapons came out and pointed at them. The three of them immediately became too frightened to move. What are you all doing?" The three four-peak experts were shocked and enraged. They had not expected these rookies to dare to resist. By the time they reacted, their lives were in their hands. "Li Kai." "Yes." "Slap them all in the face. Let's make a ruckus to announce our entrance to the inner academy," said Long Chen, flattening the wrinkles on the front of his robes. Long Chen changes it to Zhang Peng. The first characters of both names are the same, but if you look at the second characters, you can see that is with an additional radical to the right. The radical is bird, which can be slang for penis. In the second name, Long Chen has removed the bird radical. Li Kai was stunned. Have him slap four-peak experts in the face? Did he dare? Are you a fool? You'll risk your life on the battlefield, but you don't even dare to do this? Cursed Long Chen. Hearing this, Li Kai clenched his teeth and stepped forward. He threw caution to the wind and slapped one of them in the face, producing a clear sound. As a result, his own hand became numb from the impact. Red swelling rose from it. "You're courting death." The one who had been slapped roared furiously. He didn't dare to believe that these people dared to kill him, and being humiliated by these mortal transcendence disciples made him feel infuriated enough to punch Li Kai. However, as soon as he moved, Long Chen slapped him as well, sending him flying. That person's face immediately swelled up, and he directly fainted. "Stop!" Suddenly, a shout rang out, and a group of middle-aged people wearing elder robes came flying over. These people had far stronger auras. Although they were also at the four-peak realm, their auras were condensed to the limit. They had reached the peak of the four-peak realm. The leading middle-aged man saw Long Chen and was astonished. "Long Chen, why are you here?" However, as soon as he said this, he realized that Long Chen must have come to check into the inner academy. Long Chen didn't know the middle-aged man, but the latter knew Long Chen. He had watched the divine competition, and Long Chen had left a very deep impression on him. With their arrival, someone went to pick up the person Long Chen had sent flying. At this moment, the Zhang Peng that had lost his bird was still twitching on the ground, so someone placed a palm on the back of his head, making him fall unconscious so that he wouldn't have to suffer. With the arrival of these elders, the Unfettered Alliance's disciples put away their weapons and stood behind Long Chen. The leading elder then looked at Long Chen. He essentially understood what had happened already, but formalities dictated that he asked, "What happened here?" Before Long Chen could reply, one of the four-peak disciples took the lead. "Elder, this black-robed fellow is rude and unreasonable. He ignored our warning and disturbed the rainbow cranes." The elder's mouth curled. As expected, these four didn't know how terrifying this black-robed fellow was. Otherwise, they could have avoided this calamity. After babbling for a long time, Long Chen was described as someone whose sins were overflowing, someone who had broken countless rules and deserved to be expelled from the academy, or perhaps directly executed. The elder didn't believe that Long Chen would do such foolish things. Hence, he looked at Long Chen when that fellow was done. Long Chen said, "Mu Chiyun, you explain. If someone interrupts me while speaking, I might not be able to stop myself from killing him." Hearing this, those two four-peak disciples were enraged. But before they could speak, the elder gave them a glare. These two didn't know anything about the rules, so it served them right. Mu Qingyun explained what had happened. When the elder heard that one rainbow crane had transformed into human form and even asked Long Chen to play with her, he was shocked. The rainbow cranes were one of the High Firmament Academy's auspicious symbols. Even the dean was completely ignored by them, but one of them wanted to play with Long Chen? This matter is too big. I need to report this higher up. However, Long Chen, you've just joined the Inner Academy? No, it should be said that you haven't even joined the Inner Academy yet, but you've started to make enemies for yourself. That's not good for your growth, said the elder. He admired Long Chen, but this temper of his would make it difficult for him to advance in the academy. After all, the academy was filled with hidden dragons and crouching tigers. There were plenty of monsters. Desperate times call for desperate measures. I cultivate in order to live with dignity. I can wave off people acting arrogant and sneering at me, but I will not allow someone to twist my collar because that is not just a simple humiliation. If it weren't for my good mood, or perhaps that everything here is being monitored, this world would have 4 more lonely ghosts, said Long Chen. When others brandished their claws at him, Long Chen could view them as simply hopping clowns. He couldn't be bothered with them. However, for someone to dare to grab these clothes that were as precious as his life, well, if there was no surveillance here, that person would have definitely died. Crippling just a single bird off of his name was being courteous. The elder nodded. I understand what happened. They truly did things wrong, but your conduct was also slightly extreme. I am not authorized to make a judgment on this matter. Go and check in. I will have to report this matter to the Discipline Institute. If they wish to pursue it, they will notify you. Many thanks. Long Chen cupped his fists to this elder. Another trial? He was used to it. In any case, he had a foot to stand on, so he wasn't afraid of such trouble. In the academy, it was impossible to avoid trouble. The more you wish to avoid trouble, the more troublesome it would be. If Long Chen conceded a step today, he would be forced to concede more and more in the future. This was why Long Chen was no longer planning on being low-key. He would barge into the inner academy with the most forceful stance. This was the fastest way to stabilize himself here. He had no time to waste. Watching as Long Chen flew away in the boat, the 2 four-peak disciples were dumbfounded. Elder, why are you so biased toward them? Are you going to let them off just like this? Pay attention to your choice of words. What do you mean by biased? Said the other elder irritably. Are you fools? If we didn't come here, you would have been lucky to escape with your lives. You don't even know who they are, yet you dare to cause trouble for them? We saved you, but you actually say that we are biased toward them? We should have waited a few more minutes before coming. Those elders were all displeased with this accusation. They had all seen Long Chen's battle, so they knew that he was a vicious character who killed without batting an eye. On the other hand, these lucky fellows had walked past the border of death but had yet to realize it. They were truly foolish. At this moment, the leader of these elders looked at the two of them profoundly. My junior, as your old senior classmate, I'll give you some advice. You shouldn't just cultivate your cultivation base. You should cultivate your head too. Don't be a fool and charge right into the tip of a spear. There are some people that you just can't provoke. You should know who the #1 expert of the Outer Academy is. Of course we know. It's Chu Kuang. Once he enters the Inner Academy, will be folded under his subordinates. How could we not know? Said that disciple. The 4 of you really did get folded under his subordinates, said one of the elders with an odd expression. Seeing the disciple's confusion, the head elder said, Chu Kuang has passed to the other side. If you wish to continue following him, then you were doing the right thing just now. Bring the other 2 away to recover. If you wish to pursue this matter, then you can make a report to the Discipline Institute. But I'd advise you not to waste the effort. There won't be any results. The 2 of them were shocked. They had been on duty the last few days and hadn't received any news from the outside world. Hearing that Chu Kuang had died, they hastily left to hear the gossip. Watching them leave, the elder sighed. The Inner Academy is full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. There are plenty of monsters. Now that another vicious character has been thrown in, things might boil over in the Inner Academy. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.